A woman with dark hair and striking purple eyes has a sudden, shocking realization. Gasping, she collapses in her elaborate black lace dress, clutching her chest in distress. Her purple eyes widen in disbelief as she thinks, huh. Confused, she finds herself sitting on a luxurious, ornate bed in an unfamiliar room. Gazing at her reflection, she smiles and wonders if this is the famous possession trope she's read about. She examines her new features: dark hair with a blue tinge, purple eyes, and red lips. She marvels at her reflection, concluding that only otherworldly beauty could explain this. A vision appears of her as a bride, carried by a handsome groom. She imagines another path, running from an obsessive crown prince on a white horse. A third possibility flashes by, becoming a great magician's apprentice and turning the world upside down. Snapping back to reality, she clasps her hands with a bright smile, excited for whatever comes next. But her excitement fades to confusion as she wonders which novel she has actually entered, surrounded by floating story summaries. 1 hour after her possession, the grand hall remains silent and empty. Lounging on a chaise, she considers herself lucky she didn't possess a body that was drowning in a lake. She recalls her fruitless attempts to manifest magical power or find any hidden traits on her new body. While admiring her pretty new self, she laments that she would have preferred a brighter, more elegant dress. A sudden thought strikes her, and her expression turns serious as she considers her mood. Examining her black dress, she realizes it resembles morning clothes and prays that isn't the case. She forces a nervous laugh, trying to convince herself her luck couldn't possibly be that bad. Pacing the room, she desperately hopes for some kind of hint about her situation. Her attention is drawn to a set of large, golden, double doors. Creak, she pushes the doors open, her face filled with hopeful anticipation. She recoils in shock, questioning what she is seeing. Inside the closet, she discovers that every single dress, garment, and pair of shoes is black, crying out in frustration. Thud! She slams the closet doors shut in defeat. Taking a breath, she nervously decides her best bet is to find and meet someone. She laments the lack of a helpful NPC servant, noting the eerie silence since she awoke, and recalling a reminder to maintain her dignity. Standing in the doorway, she wonders if she's a villain, but then muses that, with such a beautiful face, someone should at least try to sell her off. She shouts into the vast, empty hall, desperately searching for any sign of life. Shivering, she wonders if this is a horror house or a thriller, then cautiously begins to walk forward. She runs outside the grand mansion, panting for breath. Stopping suddenly, she clutches her chest and exclaims, "Oh my!" She gazes in awe at a stunning fantasy landscape, finally confirming she's inside a novel. The idyllic scenery of a beautiful lake and sunset confirms her thought. This is heaven. Surrounded by flowers, she clasps her hands over her heart, overcome with relief and joy. Thump! The sound of a falling basket breaks the silence. She turns to see a servant who has dropped her laundry, and the woman with purple eyes wonders who she is. She smiles brightly, trying to figure out how to address the stranger, considering lady or princess. Ah! The servant lets out a blood-curdling scream of pure terror. The woman is taken aback by the extreme reaction, dryly noting that even the surprise is straight out of a novel. While the woman asks if there's something on her face, the terrified servant stares back, wondering what's wrong with her. The servant drops her basket and flees, leaving the woman standing alone in stunned silence. Excuse me. Hey, just a moment, the woman calls out, trying to stop the fleeing servant. Reaching out desperately, she realizes she needs answers to plan her life, but the servant disappears into the distance. She gives chase, utterly confused and demanding to know what is going on. Alone again, she stands breathless by a lake, shouting in frustration, "Why are you running away?" Panicked, she wonders what to do now, dreading the thought of returning to that empty, spooky house by herself. Looking in the direction the servant fled, she hopes it might lead her to other people. As she walks toward a lake under a sky with multiple moons, she wonders why her body and steps feel so heavy. She feels as if she's being wrapped in a voluminous, feather-filled blanket, a strange and ticklish sensation enveloping her. As black feathers erupt around her, the woman screams in terror, her body beginning to transform. Now, a black swan, she thrashes in panic, crying out in disbelief at the loss of her human limbs. Staring at her reflection in the lake, she realizes with horror that she has been turned into a black swan. As an elegantly dressed woman in red approaches, she wonders what is happening. The black swan confronts a woman with braided white pigtails, asking who she is. The woman with white pigtails simply answers, "Indeed." A beautiful woman with long white hair and a red gown appears, chiding the swan for not staying put. Looking up at the woman, the swan thinks one word in shock: mother. As glowing red chains bind both her human and swan forms, the white-haired woman smiles cruelly. She introduces her original self, Catherine, a minor baron's daughter whose father died early, sold to an old man. After her extravagant stepmother bankrupted the family, Catherine was sold off, seen here looking defeated in a wedding dress. Her buyer was no mere count, but the powerful Duke of Ivandel, the northern regent of the empire. She reveals the Duke died on their wedding night, making her suspect the marriage was a sham from the start. The Duke, severely injured, had no wife but 2 daughters, one with white hair, the other with dark hair. His eldest daughter, Princess Rania, was already ruling the north with remarkable skill. Princess Rania is shown standing solemnly by her dying father's bedside. A close-up reveals Rania's determined, calculating gaze. Imperial law dictates that, without a male heir, all of Rania's efforts to rule would be for naught. However, a widowed duchess suspends the inheritance for 1 year, buying precious time. This 1-year grace period was crucial for Rania to stop a rival son-in-law from taking over. To secure this, Rania needed an insignificant stepmother from a poor, powerless family, someone like Catherine. The Swan stares at her human reflection, finally understanding her role in the scheme, thinking, that's me. Oh, the black swan squawks in a flash of lightning-fueled rage, realizing the full extent of the princess's plot. The cunning Princess Raina, still feeling uneasy, decided to place a curse on her new stepmother just in case. The curse is depicted as Catherine falling through a void, bound by chains, separated from the princess. Rania explains to others that her new mother is bedridden with grief, leaving her to manage everything. As the absolute power in the north, Rania's skill in black magic proves she will do anything to maintain control. The black swan fumes, sarcastically grateful for such a generous possession and an unexpected marriage. She rages at the absurdity of it all. Her husband dying on their wedding night and then being cursed by her stepdaughter. The curse is simple. She lives as the beautiful Catherine by day, but transforms into a black swan under the moonlight. This revelation means she must not go out recklessly, as a vision of Rania watches her transformation. As a black swan, she considers running away too dangerous, and muses that with her beauty, she'd attract a crowd. Sigh, back in human form, Catherine laments that she never wanted to be a public spectacle. However, as a swan, she can't help but admire her overwhelming noble dignity in a mirror. A white swan named Celine, an information broker, asks, "Madam, if she's coming in before sunrise." The black swan smirks, thinking the clever princess didn't expect her to find a way to enjoy this leisurely life. She declares herself queen of this lake, where half the residents are also humans cursed by the princess. A small duckling reports to the swan that no one recognizes the name she asked about. Realizing she isn't the main character, she draws a blank, wondering which novel's world she's actually in. The scene flashes back to her painful transformation from human to swan. Now back in her human form, she lands gracefully among flowers, composed and elegant in her black dress. A woman with dark hair and a red dress, Rebecca, asks if she's enjoying this life. Catherine coyly suggests she ask her sister. Enraged, Rebecca warns her not to be insolent, threatening that she could remain an animal forever. Catherine smirks, knowing this would also trouble Rania, who occasionally needs the Duchess of Evendel for her plans. As Catherine turns her back, an infuriated Rebecca shouts, "Hey!" Catherine walks toward the grand mansion, calmly thinking, "Yes, yes." Sitting by the lake, Catherine acknowledges Celine's perceptiveness when the duckling notes her bad mood after Lady Rebecca's visit. It's explained that Celine's sharp perception is why she was cursed, having discovered a merchant was secretly a black magician. Celine tries to console Catherine about Rebecca's behavior, but Catherine trails off, clearly still bothered. She contemplates her 2 stepdaughters, Raina the psychopath and Rebecca the hot-tempered villain, and how different things would be if they were her own. She reflects that having been an orphan in her past life, she deeply yearns for a family. She dreams of a sweet, innocent daughter with sparkling eyes, a stark contrast to her current reality. In truth, she's trapped under the thumb of her 2 wicked stepdaughters, Rania and Rebecca. While fishing, she accidentally catches a talking fish who identifies himself as Lord Cedric, realizing she's caught yet another cursed person. As Catherine tells the fish to wait, the duckling Celine calls out to her as Madam. To Catherine's surprise, the little duckling furiously scolds the fish for not responding to her. Catherine wearily closes her eyes, deciding the squabble doesn't matter anymore, as her black swan form appears beside her. Elsewhere on the lake, the other cursed animal residents watch the commotion with anxiety. The duckling spots Rebecca approaching and alerts Catherine, now a black swan, who calmly acknowledges the sight. The gray-haired Rebecca stands among the flowers with a confident, knowing smile. Rebecca's voice echoes from a past memory, sarcastically addressing Catherine as Mother. In a flashback, Catherine coolly reminds a furious Rebecca that Mother is her proper title. As Rebecca storms off threatening revenge, Catherine scoffs, thinking nothing is scarier than her current half-beast existence. Walking back to the mansion, she recalls her initial, naive plan to escape and find a magician. The Black Swan tells Celine a cautionary tale about 2 ducks who tried to escape and were turned into snails. Catherine stops in her tracks, exclaiming, "Oh my," in surprise at something she sees. She discovers a tiny, adorable baby swan with bright red eyes nestled among the flowers. Under the beautiful night sky, she marvels at her discovery, thinking, "Oh my goodness." She confirms it's a real, newly hatched swan, while Celine stands by her side. Crouching down, she and Celine wonder if the little swan is lost or if its mother is nearby. The startled baby swan looks up, and an observer notes its fright. Celine panics, realizing the only other swans, Lord Leamington and his wife, were just fighting, making a child unlikely. Catherine muses that the lake is far from peaceful, as the animal residents are quite wild without human restrictions. She decides against asking the intimidating Lord Leamington about the baby, worried she'll just make it cry. With sudden passion, she declares they must act as calm, responsible adults to avoid traumatizing the baby swan. Celine smirks, pointing out that Catherine seems to be the most excited one, which she sheepishly acknowledges. Overjoyed, Catherine thinks she's found the baby she's always longed for, having not seen one in so long. Blushing happily, she swoons over the baby swan, much to the duckling's confusion. Catherine decides to take the baby to a nearby field at sunset to search for its family. Her hope turns to fear as Celine warns that wild dogs frequent the field, and the baby wouldn't survive the night alone. Decisively, Catherine gently picks up the baby swan as Celine looks on. Cradling the baby swan, Catherine dismisses Celine, sending her off to her chores for the afternoon. Sighing, Catherine accepts that her day of rest is over, resolving to care for the baby herself. Returning to the mansion, she peeks inside a room, nervously checking if anyone is around. She gently places the baby swan on a large pillow, apologizing for her overwhelming excitement. Overcome with joy, Catherine dotes on the adorably cute baby swan, playfully flopping onto the bed. Sitting beside the baby, she tenderly asks the little one where its mother could have gone. Catherine beams with adoration, watching the sweet red-eyed baby swan. She admires its sparkling ruby-like eyes, so bright and clear she wants to kiss them. She puzzles over its red eyes, noting that since it can't speak, it probably isn't a cursed human. Her thoughts conclude that since the child can't speak, it must be a real animal. Suddenly, she has an idea, deciding the baby swan's unusual eye color must be a mutation. Catherine sits elegantly on the floor, gently cradling the tiny white swan in her hands. Looking down at the little creature, she softly asks, "Shall I be your mother?" She reflects on her lonely existence, both as a swan on the lake and as a human in the empty villa. Catherine watches the sleepy baby swan with a gentle smile, noting its understandable exhaustion. She closes the curtains, settling the baby swan in for a nap in her quiet room. As her swan shadow looms behind her, she marvels that another one of her wishes has come true. She lies down beside the sleeping baby, feeling perfectly content with her life by the lake. As a black swan, she sleeps peacefully, curled protectively around the tiny white baby swan. The black swan wakes to find the baby swan fidgeting contentedly under her wing. "Are you awake?" she muses, amusedly asking the little swan when it snuggled so close to her. The baby swan gazes up at her adoringly, filling Catherine with a warm, maternal feeling. As Catherine reassures the baby, it suddenly speaks, asking, "Mommy?" Stunned into silence, Catherine stares at the little swan, processing what she just heard. As the baby eagerly asks if she's its mommy, Catherine is thunderstruck by the realization. "You were human?" The scene shifts to the Rohan Empire's imperial palace. The magnificent imperial palace is shown, illuminated against the night sky. At the palace, a shocked second Prince Karel confronts fourth Prince Tenon, demanding to know what's happening and worrying how to explain the situation to the Emperor. Creak! The two princes stand tensely before a grand door. The doors open to reveal a mysterious, fully armored figure with a red cape, to whom all the officials are bowing. The armored figure begins to speak, catching Prince Karel's full attention. Removing his helmet to reveal his face, the handsome blonde man says he heard an interesting story on his way back. Karel and Tenon stammer, "Why, your majesty?" Clearly intimidated by his presence, his eyes glowing red, the Emperor sarcastically asks if they think it's amusing for him to be the only one left out. With an icy glare, he demands a detailed report on everything, immediately. Tenon reports that after someone named Rome visited Haniel's palace, both of them vanished. He continues, explaining that Rome dismissed the staff for privacy, and now no one knows where he and Haniel have gone. Furious, the Emperor chastises Tenon, reminding him he was stationed there to guard, not to abandon his post. Tenon explains he withdrew the guards because the child, Haniel, was frightened, but the Emperor is silently enraged by the weak excuse. Karel tries to calm his furious brother, assuring him that a magical artifact called a pulston in Haniel's room shows no signs of alarm. He explains that the orb, a gift from their late mother, would have turned black if Haniel were in danger, proving she is safe. The emperor scoffs, incredulously asking if they are betting the child's life on a mere stone. Useless fools, he thinks, utterly disgusted with his brother's incompetence. The princes discuss the unpredictable Rome, who appeared suddenly to see Haniel and then vanished with her without a trace. The emperor listens to the report with a grim and calculating expression. Kirel recalls how Rome disobeyed orders to inherit his title years ago, lamenting his increasingly erratic and now dangerous behavior. Taking command, the emperor orders his mages to immediately track Rome before the magical traces disappear completely. The emperor confidently states Rome couldn't have crossed the border with a child yet, and Tenon affirms he will carry out the search. Kirel raises a critical problem. Since Haniel has never been seen in public, almost no one knows what she looks like. Exploding with rage, the emperor screams at them, "What kind of brothers are you?" All they have is a vague image of the young child, Haniel, in a yellow dress, clutching a teddy bear. The emperor desperately tries to get a straight answer, asking for her age. The princes sweat nervously, unable to even recall the child's age. A promotional image shows Catherine with her dark hair and a red rose, announcing a new chapter is available. The little Swan excitedly recognizes her as Mom, and Catherine realizes with certainty that the child is a real, cursed person. Catherine furiously wonders if Rania cursed these children too, while the baby swans perk up at the mention of Rania's name. And no, one of the baby swans stammers, looking down with tears in its eyes. She speculates about why Rania might have cursed them, wondering if they oppose the princess, before cutting her thoughts short. Deciding not to push the issue, she thinks, never mind, that's enough. She sighs, realizing she can't expect a traumatized baby to explain its complex situation. I wish you were a little less adorable, Catherine thinks, completely smitten as the baby swan flaps its wings, counting 3, 4. When Catherine asks for its parents' names, the baby replies, "Daddy, Daddy is in heaven." Stunned by the tragic news, Catherine can only stammer, I see. The baby innocently describes heaven, making Catherine realize the little one doesn't truly grasp the meaning of its father's death. The little swan joyfully declares, "Mom is here," as Catherine, beaming, embraces her new role. The baby happily exclaims that her brother Rome was right. Her mother really was in the Lake Country. "Brother Rome? Who's this Rome?" Catherine asks, and the baby cheerfully replies, "The 5th brother." Wow. The baby swan cheers that her brother Rome is amazing, much to the black swan's shock. Catherine's mind races, realizing the story sounds disturbingly familiar and wondering if she's somehow trapped in that novel. Stammering, she asks if the baby has other brothers, and the little one happily confirms she has many. Catherine sweats, desperately trying to deny the familiar story, thinking it can't be true after she searched so hard. She recalls the unconventional plot of a novel she once read, where the male lead married 13 times and killed 12 of his wives. Her memory continues, recalling the novel's other strange setup, a female lead who had a swarm of brothers. Hoping for a different answer, Catherine asks if the baby has any sisters. Admiring the little one's firm resolve, Catherine asks exactly how many brothers she has. Catherine panics, thinking that more than 5 brothers is too much, unless it's that story. As the baby counts to 5, she internally begs it to stop. The baby swan cheerfully announces she has 7 brothers, leaving Catherine completely stunned. Beaming, the adorable baby swan sits happily among the pink flowers. Struck by a bolt of realization, Catherine asks if she's really Haniel, and the baby swan confirms her identity. Catherine quickly dismisses hearing the brothers' names, deciding it's pointless since she wouldn't know them anyway. The baby swan asks her mom what's wrong, as a nervous Catherine begins to ask about the oldest brother. Catherine's worst fears are confirmed as she pictures Haniel's oldest brother, the infamous red-eyed tyrant emperor. The story's title is revealed, The Baby Princess in the Cabin, featuring a young, red-eyed Haniel waving from outside a log cabin. The narration explains the pitiful protagonist's backstory. She lost her parents and was raised by 7 completely uncaring brothers. The tragic tale continues, describing how the neglected and outcast princess was eventually exiled, a story that brought readers to tears. Catherine reflects on the novel, lamenting that this cruel reality is far worse than her initial hopes for the little sister's story. She recalls how the princess's brothers would even kill people in front of her, yet she bravely survived and saved a foreign prince thanks to plot armor. As the novel's love story unfolds, the princess is captured on false charges, and the prince comes to her rescue, a plot Catherine deems ordinary. The baby swan's call of, "Mom?" snaps Catherine back to reality, realizing there's a specific reason she remembers this particular story. She remembers the novel's premise. The 7 brothers were a device to emphasize the baby princess's severe neglect. A family portrait from her memory shows the brothers, all of whom she recalls as utterly selfish individuals. She remembers the details of the oldest brother, a bloodthirsty tyrant and war maniac known as the Lord of Darkness. Catherine sighs in disgust and frustration. She recalls the novel's brutal climax. Enraged by the abuse, the male lead kills all her brothers and burns the kingdom to the ground. The story ends tragically, with the female lead, now Empress, living as a sad, caged bird under the male lead's obsessive protection. Catherine reflects on the sad ending, knowing the Empress could never be happy with her homeland reduced to ashes. As the baby swan calls for Mom, Catherine realizes with horror that the story hasn't even begun, yet Haniel is already a bird. Catherine gently spreads her wing over the little one, asking how she ended up like this. Startled by her own outburst, Catherine suddenly snaps at the baby, insisting she's not her mom. She flails in a panic, feathers flying everywhere, as the little white swan watches in sad confusion. Immediately regretting her words, she wonders if she was too harsh while questioning why she would be the baby's mother. She begins to waddle away from the baby swan. Catherine's human side gushes, thinking the child is unbelievably cute, even with her misplaced trust. She panics internally, desperately thinking she cannot be labeled a kidnapper. Softening her tone, Catherine again denies being the mother, prompting a confused Haniel to ask, "You're not my mom?" Growing exasperated, Catherine flaps her wings, demanding to know if Haniel can't see the different feather colors. In a split panel, she starkly points out their differences. "I'm black. You're white." Spreading her wings wide, Catherine tries to emphasize how completely unalike they are. As Catherine finishes her point, the little swan sparkles with adoration, leaving her to wonder, what? The baby swan joyfully snuggles against her, declaring she knew it all along, while Catherine thinks this is driving her insane. In a field of dandelions, Haniel excitedly calls for Mama, but Catherine wearily insists she is not her mother. When Haniel claims they look alike, Catherine points to her beak, arguing that even their colors are different. The baby swan droops sadly, quietly accepting the correction. Catherine muses on how they look nothing alike, feeling relieved that at least their different colors prevent any mistaken identity. As a swan, she vigorously shakes her head, thinking, absolutely not. Panicked, Catherine realizes Haniel is destined for the obsessive tyrant's brother and feels she can't handle another person's drama on top of her own curse. Overcome with pity, she embraces the little swan, resolving that Haniel deserves to at least live a proper human life. A duck named Celine rushes over, asking Catherine why she looks so pale. Catherine tells the confused baby swan, Haniel, to move aside so the adults can speak. Internally, Catherine resolves that Haniel deserves better treatment, while Celine asks if she wants to discuss something privately. Catherine startles Celine by asking if she knows anything about His Majesty the Emperor. In her human form, Catherine is exasperated by Celine's immediate fear at the mere mention of the Emperor. Celine reminds Catherine she asked about the Emperor's name but then refused to hear it, leaving a flustered Catherine to stammer in defense. Catherine laments that she didn't know he was the female lead's brother when she first dismissed the information. As Catherine asks if his name is Rasheed Panoa III, an image of the imposing Emperor appears, and Celine confirms but remains confused. Catherine asks if the Emperor is truly that scary, but Celine insists he's doubled the Empire's territory, making Catherine conclude he's a warmonger. Celine explains that the Emperor, as Crown Prince, used to visit the Winter Palace, a favorite villa of the late Empress in the northern region. Catherine looks pensive as she pictures the grand Winter Palace. Celine says the Emperor has no reason to visit now, but Catherine presses, asking if he doesn't have a younger sister. Shocked by Catherine's ignorance, Celine exclaims that Haniel is the Empire's one and only baby princess. Celine mentions the Emperor has many siblings, and the parents had a good relationship. Catherine looks at Haniel, thinking the child isn't to blame. Catherine wonders why Haniel isn't treated specially, speculating if she's the daughter of a concubine or has a different mother. Celine clarifies the late Emperor had no concubines, leaving Catherine stunned that Haniel is, in fact, the Emperor's full-blooded sister. Celine explains Haniel should have been named Imperial Princess at age 2, but rumors circulate that she is ill or even dead. Who died? Catherine shouts, startling Celine with her sudden outburst. Catherine's thoughts turn adoring as she admires Haniel's perfectly formed webbed feet and adorably small beak. Celine asks if something is wrong due to Catherine's agitation, but Catherine quickly dismisses her concern. In her human form, Catherine speculates that since the Emperor is busy with war, perhaps someone else took Haniel to raise her. Celine recounts a gruesome tale of the Emperor burning kidnappers alive, leaving Catherine horrified by her casual tone. Haniel asks Catherine what she plans to do with her now, since no one seems to know who she is. With a determined gleam in her eye, Catherine resolves to find Haniel's owner immediately. The scene shifts to the throne room, where Emperor Rasheed coldly demands his brothers report what happened. Tenon reports that Rome bewitched the maids, who now have no memories, and the emperor callously orders their execution. The emperor coldly questions the value of keeping servants who can no longer remember anything useful. With a menacing glare, the emperor scoffs at the idea of letting useless servants who lost their master live. Kirel cautiously reminds his brother that someone will need to care for Haniel when she returns. Memory shows Haniel as a small, fragile child in a beautiful dress, clutching her stuffed animals. The narration reveals that everyone, even her brothers as children, shirked the responsibility of caring for her. Kirel remembers that the only one who ever approached Haniel was as the emperor on his throne thinks. What did I do? Kirel quickly backtracks, saying it was nothing, while recalling with dread how his eldest brother treated the newborn Haniel. In a flashback, a courtier explains the empress's death to the armored emperor, who stoically asks, "Is this the child?" As the emperor, face stained with blood, looms over the crib, a younger Kirel desperately begs him not to do anything rash. The emperor emotionlessly pokes the infant's cheek, asking if she's dead. As the baby begins to cry, the emperor watches her with a cold, detached expression. "She's alive. That's enough," the emperor declares, leaving Kirel to handle the rest as he walks away. Kirel pleads with him to at least follow tradition and bestow a name upon the child. Pausing briefly, the emperor nonchalantly names her Haniel before continuing on his way. Kirel despairs, realizing his brother just named the princess after their late mother's pet. Back in the present, Emperor Rasheed demands to know what he did wrong, while Kirel thinks he's being unexpectedly persistent. Kirel explains that Haniel is shy and has slow speech, a fact that bewilders and shocks the emperor, who had no idea. The emperor demands to know when Haniel will speak properly, making his brothers tremble with fear. Tenon brightly suggests a cruel method. Throwing Haniel around might shock her into speaking, just like it worked for Heron and Aaron. Erupting with a terrifying aura, the emperor furiously roars at Tenon. Is that even a method? The emperor seems lost in thought, while Kirel looks on with a pained and exhausted expression. Kirel nervously reassures him she'll speak eventually, but the emperor angrily cuts him off, telling him to shut up. A new character is introduced, Peyton, the stern knight commander of the southern fiefdom. Peyton reports that traces of Rome have been found, suggesting he passed through the central area a week ago. Seated on his throne, Emperor Rasheed deduces that Rome must have headed north. No, that won't do. With a chilling smile and surrounded by glowing blue roses, the emperor resolves to end this personally. Oh, snap. His brothers recoil in terror, recalling that the last time he smiled like that, an entire country vanished. A voice calls out to the little one as the scene transitions to a garden reflected in a shimmering pool. Catherine, as a black swan, beckons the baby swan over, but Haniel hopefully asks, "Mommy." In her human form, Catherine grows flustered, awkwardly insisting she just told the child to come here. Back in swan form, Catherine gently tells Haniel where to sit, and the little one happily agrees. As Haniel sits, Catherine approves, while her human side gushes over how cute the baby is. Catherine firmly tells Haniel she isn't her mother, prompting the sad baby to ask where her real mommy is. Catherine worries about revealing her name, fearing the terrifying emperor would have her cooked for impersonating family. Haniel adorably mispronounces black swan as black swan while looking up at her. Catherine patiently corrects the baby, telling her she can just call her Black Swan. Black Swan begins to question Haniel, asking how she got here, where she lived, and if she remembers who brought her. Impressed by Haniel's perceptiveness, Catherine muses that if Haniel is the main character, she must be the max-level supporting character. To help her think, Black Swan magically conjures a shining, fish-shaped biscuit for the little swan. Haniel's eyes sparkle with hearts as she nibbles the treat and declares it's delicious. Catherine is pleased, proudly thinking that of course it's good, since she used to be a professional animal caretaker. After her snack, Haniel happily answers Black Swan's question, simply stating that she lived in a palace. Haniel excitedly wiggles and explains that her big brother Rome hugged her tightly and brought her out. Imagining Rome as a dapper magician, Haniel explains he makes flowers bloom and that she grew wings when he hugged her, leaving Catherine to wonder why she's a swan if her brother is a magician. As Haniel continues gushing about how fun her big brother Rome is, Catherine sits and observes how much the princess adores him. Horrified by the mention of more brothers, Black Swan erupts in a flurry of feathers, begging Haniel to stop talking about them. Catherine clenches her fists in fury, wondering what horrible things the other brothers did to make Haniel cry at just their names. Crying while eating, Haniel recounts how her brother told her that mommy would be at the lake country. Softening, Black Swan promises to help Haniel find big brother Rome, and the little swan perks up at the suggestion. With teary eyes, Haniel says Rome promised to bring her chocolate cake if she just waited for him. When asked where she was waiting, Haniel admits she doesn't know, but says she got scared and followed blackbirds to the lake country. Catherine seethes with rage, recognizing Rome's promise as the most common lie told when abandoning a child. Realizing time is critical, Catherine declares she has no time to comfort Haniel, as the golden window for finding missing children is only 72 hours. Outside with Celine, Catherine deflects the duck's question about leaving, defensively asking why she would ever do that. When Celine suggests waiting, Catherine bitterly retorts that if waiting brought family back, neither of them would be alone. With newfound resolve, Catherine states that waiting is pointless and they must leave immediately to find Haniel's brother. Catherine theorizes they simply missed her brother at the cake shop and impatiently demands the map Celine prepared. The duck proudly presents a map, which Catherine snatches with a determined look. Celine explains she got the map from the kitchen, but is suddenly distracted by how delicious the fish cake is. The duck marvels at the fish cake's flavor, wondering how it tastes so different from raw fish. Catherine smugly explains its quality comes from her 10 years of experience in the animal feed business, recalling her past life. Celine praises her skills, but Catherine laments that her past life buff is just animal care, not something cooler like medicine or foresight. Looking over the map of a large town, Catherine listens as Celine explains it's a major trading hub on the route to Levante. Catherine has a flash of insight, remembering the male lead from the novel was the heir to the kingdom of Levante, and realizing this is how Haniel meets him. Watching Haniel waddle among flowers, Catherine muses she could play matchmaker if the child were older, but fears the Emperor's wrath. Kneeling by the map, Catherine asks Celine to point out the dessert shops. Celine identifies 3 shops, offering to guide them to the closest one, but Catherine firmly declines. Catherine decisively points to the farthest shop on the map, leaving Celine utterly confused by her choice. She explains her logic. Haniel followed migratory birds, and this route is the only one with the necessary plains and wetlands for them to rest. Awestruck by her deduction, Celine calls Catherine amazing, though Catherine humbly brushes it off. Dressed in a dark traveling cloak, Catherine announces she must leave immediately before it gets any later. Celine expresses her surprise, admitting she thought Catherine would raise the little swan herself, a notion that shocks Catherine. Catherine delivers a stiff, formal refusal, stating Haniel has a family and they are strangers, prompting Celine to note she is talking like she is reading from a book. Catherine coldly insists she has no interest in Haniel, pushing them away as strangers, while Celine pops out of the water asking why. As a panicked chibi Catherine appears, Celine's voice calls out, "Little one." The scene changes to Emperor Rasheed and his cloaked brothers on horseback. He dismisses a subordinate's concern, saying he is tired of being asked if he is all right. Looking over a vast town from a cliff, the Emperor quietly remarks that it has been 3 years. In a combined scene, a subordinate asks if His Majesty is all right, which the Emperor waves off as he gazes at the distant city, noting 3 years have passed. An aide's voice explains that the late Empress stayed at this villa while pregnant with Haniel, confirming it has been over 3 years. Carell chides Tenon for using the title Your Majesty, warning it advertises their presence, prompting a flustered apology. Kirill then cheerfully suggests that since they're here, the Emperor should meet Princess Rana. The Emperor curtly asks why, so Kirill advises offering condolences for the late Duke's funeral, adding she may soon rule the North. Kirill explains that the princess is acting lord because the stepmother Duchess is not in charge, which surprises the Emperor, who asks when the Duke remarried. The Emperor scoffs at the idea of a deathbed marriage, questioning its purpose. He then angrily wonders why the princess is involved in politics instead of her stepmother. Kirill reveals the stepmother has a bad reputation and is rumored to be a witch, leaving the Emperor to wonder what she could have done to earn such a title. Riding alongside his brother, the Emperor sharply tells Kirill to stop meddling when his own sister is still missing. The Emperor sternly asks Kirill if the magicians are still tracking Haniel's location. In a flashback to their mother, the Emperor explains that he turned a blind eye to Rome's actions because of her request for one sibling to live freely. He grimly notes that while Rome can escape, Haniel is a different matter and could easily become an irredeemable hostage. A nervous Tenon calls out to his elder brother, as Kirill stands beside him, holding a glowing magical item. The Emperor asks if they're sure of the location, and Kirill confirms they tracked Rome's magic signature from the temple, so it should be accurate. As the 3 brothers ride toward a castle gate, Kirill vows they will find them here, whether alive or dead. Arriving in the same town, Catherine consults her map and then sighs romantically at the beautiful architecture. She breathes a sigh of relief, thinking she never would have made it if she hadn't gotten directions from the friendly white wolves she met. Catherine grumbles to herself, wondering if life as a black swan would be easier since her human body feels so cumbersome. She considers the freedom of being a swan, free from the stress of dealing with other people. Her train of thought derails completely upon spotting a patisserie window full of delicious cakes, and she instantly takes back her words. With renewed purpose and sparkling eyes, Catherine joyfully celebrates the perks of being human. She firmly concludes that no matter how good swan life is, only humans can enjoy sweet desserts. Stepping forward with purpose, Catherine decides to go inside and inquire about the child-abandoning criminal, Rome. Catherine taps an annoyed-looking, orange-haired woman on the shoulder to ask a question. The woman angrily scolds Catherine for cutting, pointing to the long line of people waiting outside the shop. Catherine is taken aback, finding herself facing the collective glare of the entire queue of impatient women. The orange-haired woman dismisses her, saying that everyone has been waiting since dawn, and asking if Catherine thinks they have nothing better to do. The woman proudly declares that this shop won the Rohan Dessert Fair Grand Prix, a fact she announces with great fanfare. A flustered Catherine claims she didn't know, but the woman scoffs, saying a truly desperate person would have lined up the night before. Catherine panics, thinking she couldn't have lined up because, as a Swan, she would have probably been eaten. For a brief moment, Catherine considers ending the argument by revealing she is the Duchess. She quickly dismisses the idea, remembering her goal is to avoid ruining her reputation in this area. Catherine recalls the awful rumors about her being a cruel witch who married a dying duke for his fortune. Just then, the Emperor and his brothers arrive, with one pointing out this is the place, while the Emperor wonders why they are at a bakery. Seeing the long line, the Emperor muses that the place must be quite good. As Carell explains that the shop was recommended, a polite cuts through the crowd. With a sweet smile, Catherine parts the crowd and approaches the three cloaked men. The brothers freeze as Catherine appears before them, and someone from the crowd confirms this is the place they're looking for. The three brothers look utterly bewildered by the sudden appearance of the cloaked woman. Catherine asks if they're looking for the Grand Prix winning shop, and the Emperor stammers that he probably is. Smiling pleasantly, Catherine tells him to get in line, leaving a baffled Carell to ask, "Pardon?" With a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, Catherine calmly repeats her instruction. "I said, get in line." She gestures cheerfully towards some children, pointing out that even they know how to wait their turn. While Catherine praises the children's manners, the three royal brothers fume silently behind her, their anger palpable. Adjusting her hood, Catherine observes the men, thinking their clueless behavior is odd for people seeking a famous restaurant. As the three brothers fume, two muttering, "Brother!" Catherine glances back, wondering if the line is getting longer or shorter. In line, a brown-haired woman complains about the cold, while her friend points out that everyone is waiting, including the lady in the black cloak. The two children from before are now terrified, staring past Catherine at the three menacing, cloaked men as the boy whimpers that he's scared. Catherine turns to the children, reassuring them not to worry about the men, prompting the boy to ask how she can be so sure. With a comforting smile and a wink, Catherine explains her simple philosophy. There are no truly bad people among those who love cake. A bell jingles as Catherine and the children watch the bakery door swing open. A woman in a baker's uniform steps out and announces to the murmuring crowd that they are sold out for the day, much to everyone's dismay. An indignant Catherine demands to know how they can be sold out when there are clearly cakes inside. But the baker explains they're all reserved. Shielding the children, Catherine challenges the baker, stating she heard the shop doesn't accept reservations. The baker smugly clarifies that the desserts were specially ordered by Princess Rebecca from the Northern House of Evendell for her afternoon snack. As the crowd murmurs about royalty, the baker admonishes Catherine for daring to covet items meant for such an esteemed person. The baker impatiently shoos Catherine and the crowd away, telling them to leave immediately. As Catherine steps forward, one of the brothers urges the Emperor to calm down, fearing they will be discovered, but she insists they aren't finished speaking. Catherine corners the startled baker, icily remarking that the shop's manners are worse than a street vendor's. Leaning in menacingly, Catherine demands the baker repeat himself, and he nervously stammers that Princess Rebecca ordered everything. Removing her hood to reveal her face, Catherine calmly introduces herself with a statement that stuns the baker. "I'm Rebecca's mother." With her hood down, Catherine stands before the baker as the crowd, including the three cloaked brothers, looks on from a distance. The crowd erupts in whispers, shocked by the possibility that the woman is the Duchess. The three royal brothers watch in disbelief as the Emperor quietly utters, "Sister." Catherine coolly reminds the baker of his own words, questioning how anyone in the north could not know the House of Evendell. As the baker trembles, Catherine glares down at him and asks with a chilling intensity if she really seems insane to him. The terrified baker frantically denies it, so Catherine tells him to call her house for confirmation, if he must. She delivers a final, terrifying threat. If her identity is confirmed, he will be finished that very day. With a clatter, the horrified baker scrambles back inside the shop. The baker hastily packs a variety of delicate cakes into a box. Bowing deeply, the baker presents the pink cake box to Catherine, who accepts it with a smile, calling it an excellent choice. Holding the box, Catherine confirms this is the chocolate cake she mentioned, while the boy behind her whispers in awe that she really is a witch. The boy's older sister forces him into a deep bow, frantically apologizing to the madam for his ignorant and rude behavior. She accepts the apology but gently chides the girl for being out in the cold weather with her younger brother. Catherine drapes her own dark cloak over the shivering girl's shoulders. Waving them off, Catherine tells the children to eat their cake and hurry home before it gets late. She turns with a sly smile, noting that one person remains and that they're still here. As she walks away from the shop, she turns to face the Emperor, who calls out to her. Catherine offers the cake box to the Emperor, admitting she was going to give him some, even if he hadn't stared at her. Handing over the box, she explains with a smile that she has her principles. The brothers snatch the box with surprising speed, leaving Catherine to marvel at how fast their hands are. Realizing she needs to get them to leave so she can question the manager about Rome, Catherine dismisses the expedition team to go home. Holding the box, one of the brothers asks what she'll do now, and she simply replies, "Me?" She gives a bright, dismissive smile, saying she still has some business to attend to. The Emperor looks up at the sky, suddenly realizing with a jolt that it has gotten dark. Catherine panics as she feels the telltale signs of her transformation into a black swan, realizing she's out of time to ask about Rome. Desperate to find a secluded place, she tries to flee, but the Emperor calls out for her to wait. As she stumbles, the Emperor asks if she really is who he thinks, but she frantically tells him to move aside. As dark feathers begin to manifest, Catherine shoves past the Emperor, snapping that his joke wasn't funny at all. The Emperor looks on with a stunned and concerned expression as his brother calls out his name. Running through the streets, Catherine thinks she'll have something sweet to cheer up, hoping no one saw her eating the cakes. His brothers report that they lost her, but the Emperor angrily silences them. Holding the pink cake box, the Emperor grimly thinks he'd rather have the enemy commander's head on a platter. The other two brothers watch nervously as the Emperor sighs, clutching the box of desserts. Crack! The Emperor crushes the pink cake box in his gloved hand, his rage palpable. He drops the ruined box as his two cloaked brothers watch in stunned silence. The Emperor declares he has no interest in meddling, but must know if a witch truly lives in his land, as his white-haired brother looks on worriedly. Arriving at a lake, the black swan is met by a worried duckling who asks why she was so late, to which the swan sighs that it's a long story. The duckling asks about the child, and another reports that the child clammed up as soon as the swan left and refuses to speak. Suddenly, a small white cygnet named Haniel looks up at the black swan and shyly calls out, "Mama." Haniel waddles toward the black swan, flapping its wings and repeating, "Mama." The duckling explains that the child won't eat and only calls for her, but when the swan insists they feed her, the duckling says they even asked Lady Mellow for help. The black swan is horrified, demanding to know why on earth they would leave the baby with Lady Mellow. A flashback introduces Lady Mellow, a goose, who was a companion to Rana, a woman determined to remarry the former duke. Lady Mellow's past self, an older woman, is remembered for her rigid advice to maintain dignity, which ultimately drove Raina to the lake. The duckling explains Lady Mellow's admirable belief that abandoning one's noble mindset as a goose means becoming a mere animal. The black swan screeches in fury, while the duckling nervously asks if she actually went to the dessert shop in town. The swan internally reflects on how she couldn't mention the shop closing, having given cake to both the children and the mysterious brothers. Back in her human form, Catherine shivers as an image of the Emperor appears, wondering why she feels a sudden chill. As a swan again, she blushes, wondering if she's flustered by the man's informal speech, simply because he was handsome. Catherine recalls the man's firm build, and concludes his lack of reaction meant he either didn't believe she was the Duchess, or something else entirely. The black swan preens, wondering if she was perhaps a bit too kind, as a confused duckling looks on. Catherine blushes, convinced that the man she showed kindness to was showing romantic interest, a feeling she believes she can recognize. The black swan's expression hardens with sudden, intense focus. Seeing two figures approach in the distance, the swan orders a duckling named Celine to take the child and hide, suggesting Lady Mellow if Celine can't manage alone. As Celine protests, a woman in a red dress and another with white hair appear, with the latter noting that her daughters are late for once. The woman in red yanks on a rope around the swan's neck, dragging her forward as the swan struggles and demands to be released. The swan is helplessly dragged by the rope toward the grand estate. The woman in red glares down at the swan, angrily demanding that she speak up. The swan glares back defiantly, thinking the woman wouldn't listen anyway. The swan lunges at her captor, vowing to break her wrist, causing the startled woman to shout that she's crazy. The woman in red dares the swan to try anything while the white-haired woman watches impassively. Flustered, the woman in red stammers, "S sister," losing her aggressive posture. The white-haired woman calmly reminds her sister to maintain her dignity, silencing her protests. She then turns to the Swan with a pleasant smile, asking, "Isn't that right, Mother?" A bright, transformative light envelops the struggling black swan. The two women watch as the transformation completes. The white-haired woman asks what this is about, while the newly transformed Catherine thinks it would be pointless to explain. Now human again, Catherine sits in a dark dress, wondering why she transformed when it's still nighttime. The narrative explains the glowing windows contain a luna, a magical item that stores sunlight, possessed only by the Lord of the North. The white-haired woman holds the Aluna, condescendingly telling Catherine not to covet what a lowly person can't have. Amused that the Aluna worked, the white-haired woman is interrupted by her sister Raina, who angrily asks what she's doing. Rana accuses Catherine of sneaking into the city to either shame the ducal family or escape. Pointing furiously, Rana tells her sister Rebecca that Catherine outrageously claimed to be her mother. Rebecca and Rana stare down at Catherine as she is addressed as the Duchess. Catherine stands, accusing them of setting a trap, but Rebecca simply asks why she went to a dessert shop. With a smirk, Catherine retorts, asking what else a woman in her 20s would do at a dessert shop, causing Rebecca to blush. Catherine angrily suggests Rebecca should try a diet of only raw fish for a while. Rebecca coldly threatens that if Catherine's goal is to shame the family, her neck will be snapped and she'll be buried in the swamp. She then warns Catherine that another such stunt will result in her eldest daughter, Rana, losing all her titles. As they face off, Catherine reaffirms to herself that though she's treated like a puppet, she is the Duchess of Evandel, with immense wealth and power. Catherine apologizes, promising to be more careful, and Rebecca addresses her as Catherine for the first time. Rebecca smiles with predatory glee, revealing fangs as she asks what Catherine is so afraid of, questioning what she could possibly do in half a day. Lifting Catherine's chin, Rebecca taunts her, asking what the problem is since she'd surely crawl back before being caught by hunters. Lifting Catherine's chin, Rebecca menacingly tells her to stop pretending to be nice. Rebecca internally fumes that rumors of a half-mad witch would tarnish her own bid to succeed the North, as Catherine wonders what her daughter has become. As Rebecca smiles with chilling glee, Catherine realizes her daughter is truly crazy, and that reasoning with her is impossible. Rebecca coldly states she isn't interested in the position, and that the incident will be overlooked this time, causing Catherine to flinch. Rebecca smugly thinks to herself that surely she isn't the one causing any trouble. Rebecca's smile turns utterly sinister, making Rana flinch in shock. Rebecca muses that while she must keep her mother alive, she doesn't have to keep her perfectly intact. When Catherine retorts that a lawyer is coming, Rebecca dismisses it. Leaning in, Rebecca continues to torment Catherine with a cruel, menacing smile. Rebecca whispers that not all wounds show on the outside, leaving Catherine to wonder in terror what she's planning. Abruptly, Rebecca's expression shifts to a bright, almost cheerful smile. She then orders Rana to fetch every snack from the kitchen, planning to cruelly stuff them all into their mother's mouth. When a horrified Rana questions the order, Rebecca asks if she's curious, threatening to feed her first instead. Reluctantly, Rana agrees and hastily runs off to the kitchen. Arriving at the door, Rana is annoyed to find the birds blocking her path, sarcastically noting their loyalty before telling them to get out of the way. As one of the geese lunges forward, Catherine screams for it to stop, but Rebecca holds her back. Wham! Rebecca viciously yanks Catherine's hair, pulling her head back with a cruel smile. Rana returns, surprised to see Rebecca still there, and asks why she hasn't left yet. Rana then turns and looks out the doorway into the bright daylight. Rebecca glares with cold, calculating intensity. Thud Catherine is thrown to the floor, where Rebecca looms over her, telling her she's lucky. Rebecca then grabs Rana's arm, brusquely telling her to move aside. With another sudden shift, Rebecca clasps her hands with a serene smile, leaving the fallen Catherine to wonder at the sight. As Catherine stumbles, she sees her daughters looking out at the distant winter palace, now illuminated against the night sky. A faint smile touches Catherine's lips as she quietly wonders what's happening, thinking to herself that she must be truly lucky. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny day at the Grand Ivandel estate. Inside, the Emperor sits on a gilded chair and silences an aide who is giving a report. The aide then turns to the two brothers, instructing them not to act rashly as the Emperor wishes to look around quietly, and says he will prepare their rooms. The Emperor glares at the aide, impatiently repeating that he's said enough and demanding to know if everyone has been informed of his arrival. The aide presents a formal invitation, confirming it bears the crest of the House of Ivandel. Holding the invitation, the Emperor smirks as an image of Catherine appears in his mind, and he thinks that this all fits together perfectly. Back with Catherine, she gently adjusts a ribbon on one of the ducks, chiding it for not hiding well and getting into a fuss. She smooths the duck's feathers, remarking that its timing was good. Looking toward the estate, Catherine realizes Haniel's older brother has arrived, meaning they can simply return the signet without having to find Rome. She worries that the biggest hurdle will be convincing the brother that the signet is Haniel, but decides they can just claim to have seen him cast a spell. Her resolve hardens as she thinks that once they send the child back, this whole ordeal will finally be over. Suddenly, she is met by Lady Mello, the goose, who formally greets the Duchess. Catherine feigns surprise, asking why Lady Mello is greeting her when she thought the goose was wary. The goose simply replies that she knew Catherine would be wary. Catherine smiles, asking what she means. Lady Mello states that she knew the Duchess would visit at least once, and Catherine quietly concedes the point. Catherine offers some backhanded praise, remarking that age is no barrier to refinement, and that the goose seems quite well. The goose looks unconvinced, and Catherine, sweating slightly, presses on, asking if she truly believes that. Lady Mallow confidently states her speculation that Catherine must be from a noble family, remembering the day she found her. The goose puffs her chest proudly, adding that they have even invited a new teacher for the new students. Internally, Catherine scoffs at how ridiculous this is, sarcastically noting they must have recruited some pushover migratory bird as the new teacher. A sly smile appears, as she realizes she's come to exactly the right person to manipulate. After a moment of thought under the clear sky, she murmurs in understanding. So that's how it was. Performing a perfect curtsy to the waddling goose, Catherine says with feigned sincerity that she has learned many useful things from Lady Mello. She then warns the stumbling Lady Mello not to overexert herself, feigning concern that she might fall. With a devious smile, Catherine tempts the goose with visions of delicious cakes, slyly asking if indulging in food truly makes one a beast. Lady Mello suggests that an inspection from the Duchess herself would boost the new students' morale, to which Catherine feigns confusion. The scene shifts to a tense night, where Lady Mello harshly scolds the small signets, demanding they swallow their cries as hunters are nearby. As the Black Swan looks on in fury, Lady Mello screeches that she is a heartless old hag, while a frantic Celine urges her to hold on. Lady Mello wonders how the Swan can be so awful, adding that it's no surprise Raina cursed her. Celine then points out that Catherine is just as bad. Celine argues that Haniel is learning vital survival skills, but the Swan furiously retorts, asking who says the signet is alone. The Swan questions if Celine knows about Haniel's powerful family, as Catherine's human form laments not being able to raise the child herself. Celine reassures her that the trouble won't be for long, but the Swan internally disagrees, thinking that's not the case at all. Celine pointedly asks the Swan if she is avoiding sending the signet away simply because it's too much trouble. Under a beautiful night sky, the Swan warns Celine that showing careless affection will cause the signet to fixate on her for life. Catherine explains that her passing kindness would become an obsession for the baby Swan, who would forever wonder when she might return. A flashback reveals a lonely young Catherine as she realizes the signet's longing would be just like her own past. Catherine coldly tells Celine that she, who had parents, could never understand this feeling. Concluding that temporary kindness would only confuse the signet, Catherine refuses to act just to ease her conscience, but Celine argues her concern isn't half-hearted. Catherine's chibi form appears, thinking to herself that Celine is only perceptive about things like this. The Swan wonders what Lady Mello is teaching the children, while Celine muses that it's good for Haniel to learn, whether she's able to or not. Snapping that Celine is a bird brain, the Swan startles her before thinking that the signet is still young and will understand eventually. Catherine thinks that Haniel is different and will have many family members to teach her, as Celine ponders if blood is thicker than water. At a lavish party, a noblewoman asks about the Emperor's usual schedule and is told the highest-ranking local family hosts a welcome party. When asked about the timing, the noblewoman explains all the nobles of the north must be invited, prompting a panicked voice to forbid the idea of going. Back at the lake, Celine warns the Swan that Princess Raina has forbidden her from attending, but Catherine dismisses it as nonsense. With determined grace, the Swan takes flight, heading directly for the brilliantly lit estate in the distance. Inside the opulent hall, a voice demands that even more decorations be put up immediately. On a high balcony, Rana, in a striking red dress, orders her maids to cover the chandelier in blinding diamonds. A calm voice from behind her asks just whose eyes are supposed to be blinded, causing Rana to turn in surprise. The speaker is revealed to be a mysterious, black-haired man in a blue, hooded cloak, identified as Ronan. Rana chides Ronan for appearing without her permission. He feigns being hurt, but she warns him that using his magic carelessly will attract unwanted attention to his existence as the heir to the great mage Kyrian. Ronan simply offers a confident, sly smile in response. Ronan notes his surprise that the Emperor accepted the party invitation, but Rana casually dismisses his astonishment. With a confident smile, Rana explains that it is tradition for the Lord of the North to host such a party. Ronan counters that His Majesty has always been too busy for such events, and asks what she means by this as she smiles knowingly. On the balcony, Ronan waits as the white-haired Rana holds her fan, contemplating her answer. Rania snaps that he is being impertinent, but Ronan smiles coolly, reminding the princess that all of Ivandel's fate rests in his hands. As Catherine resolves to pay her respects, Rania argues with Ronan, refusing to present that woman with no background as the ducal representative. But he calmly insists it's the custom. Ronan suggests the emperor might ask for Catherine first, but Rania scoffs, certain the war-focused monarch wouldn't care for such trivialities. Ronan then posits that the princes might be different, but Rania coolly retorts, asking if he really thinks she hasn't considered that. Rania declares they will just say Catherine is sick, determined that nothing unfit for the ducal family's dignity will be seen. From a window, two snails watch as Ronan asks if she'll just leave Catherine alone. Rania replies absolutely not, lest people think they invited her. Rania smirks as she looks out the window, confident that Catherine, stuck by the lake, is completely ignorant of the goings-on. A snail on Catherine's hand seems to ask why someone was speaking ill of the madam. In the garden, Catherine reassures her animal companions that they've worked hard and dismisses the snail's concern, feeding some small birds. Holding the snail, Catherine cryptically explains it wouldn't understand the sequence of transformations, from knight to duck to snail. Celine the duck waddles forward, carrying the small white signet and formally addressing Catherine as madam. Celine explains she brought the signet as asked, but frets that the little one was hiding because she couldn't fit in. Catherine gently tells her it's all right. Catherine kneels, gently taking the trembling signet into her hands. Standing with purpose, Catherine announces she must go prepare, causing the surrounding birds to ask in surprise if she's really going. The snail on her hand warns her that Princess Rania has blocked the path to the mansion with thorny bushes to keep banquet guests out. Unfazed, Catherine simply smiles and instructs two small birds to go and fetch the beaver for her. The scene shifts to a panoramic view of the grand, blue-roofed city under a clear sky. At the party, Rebecca, now in a beautiful purple gown, gracefully welcomes the arriving Count and Countess. The Count expresses his joy at seeing the ducal mansion's doors open again, stating that all the nobles have been waiting for this day. Feigning piety, Rebecca demurs, claiming she couldn't selfishly enjoy banquets while the emperor and her father fought for Rohan. Nearby ladies whisper in admiration of Rebecca's beauty and wisdom, calling her the best potential daughter-in-law, as another noblewoman tries to introduce her son. The noblewomen gossip, with one asking Rebecca if she's referring to the emperor's close aide. Her friend swoons, declaring that the aide's future is absolutely guaranteed. Rebecca turns the conversation back on the ladies, slyly asking if a woman has been chosen to share that fortune. Flustered, the targeted noblewoman stammers that she supposes so. Rebecca smiles sweetly and excuses herself to greet other guests, leaving the noblewomen looking puzzled. An elegant boot steps onto the gleaming floor, signaling the arrival of an important guest. The emperor, flanked by his two sons, makes a grand and imposing entrance at the party. Rania, leading the northern nobles, formally greets the emperor and princes, introducing herself as the eldest daughter of Evendel, as he bids her to rise. Rania expresses her honor, and shyly reminds the emperor that it's been 3 years, but he asks what she means by that. She clarifies that it has been that long since the late empress last visited. The emperor acknowledges the great effort the princess must have put into hosting the welcome party. A guest notes there haven't been banquets since the duke's passing, but Rania insists it's natural to honor the emperor's visit. Rania professes her loyalty, citing her father's teachings, but the emperor pointedly asks why she isn't following his words. He states that by proper etiquette, someone else should have bowed to him first, leaving a confused Rania to ask what he means. Flustered, Rania suggests he might be referring to her younger sister Rebecca, who is waiting nearby. The emperor coldly asks if her etiquette places a sister before her mother, shocking Rania into questioning his meaning. He bluntly states that the Dowager Duchess of Ivendell is absent from the reception. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, the emperor intensifies his questioning, demanding to know where the Dowager Duchess is. His glare hardens as he repeats his question, his fury palpable. A panicked Rania insists that's not the issue at hand. Internally, Rania seethes, wondering how the emperor could possibly know of that woman and questioning why he would seek out her mother. She explains that after her father's death, her mother stopped eating and has been in seclusion ever since. The emperor smirks, his red eyes glinting as he repeats Rania's words about the duchess's refusal to eat or drink. Rania internally debates how to answer, admitting to herself that her mother is mentally unwell and unfit to appear, but hesitates to voice such a disgrace. Clenching her fist, Rania fumes that this conversation is derailing her plan to have the first dance with the emperor. Rania formally apologizes for troubling him with family matters, but a nobleman defends her, stating she's done nothing wrong. The nobleman continues, claiming everyone knows the Dowager Duchess is unwell, as other guests murmur their agreement. The Emperor's eyes flare red as he icily reminds the man he was not given permission to speak. He menacingly asks the nobleman if he's prepared to take responsibility for his words, stunning the crowd into silence. Rana hastily intervenes, pleading with the Emperor that there's no need for taking sides or responsibility. She quickly adds that she was merely worried about overburdening her ill mother. As a pair of elegant purple heels click forward, a new voice states she would have come earlier had she known her daughter was in such a bind. Catherine makes a stunning entrance in a black dress, leaving the entire hall in awe. Rania stammers in disbelief, questioning why her mother, Catherine, is there. Catherine calmly replies that she couldn't bear to keep worrying, her presence captivating the onlookers. With a soft smile, Catherine chides a glaring Raina to lighten her expression, asking if she's intruded. Catherine explains she was only trying to be considerate of Rainia's burden, as a daughter shouldn't have to carry such responsibilities alone. Raina questions if it's all right for her to be here, but internally seethes, demanding she leave at once. Catherine reassures a stunned Raina that of course it's fine, as she is always worried about her eldest daughter. Raina internally fumes, thinking Catherine is presumptuously taking her place as the lady of the house. The gossiping noblewoman from earlier stammers, realizing that Catherine is indeed the mother of the eldest daughter. A nobleman quickly tries to cover, claiming they were all just worried about the Duchess. Catherine graciously tells them that if they're so worried, they are welcome to visit her anytime. Rania glares furiously, thinking that her mother's expression makes it seem like she wants to skin her alive. Catherine gracefully curtsies before the Emperor, introducing herself as the former Duchess of Evendel, and he bids her to rise. As Catherine expresses her honor, the Emperor thinks to himself that her voice sounds strangely familiar. The Emperor stares intently at Catherine, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. The scene focuses on the ornate white roses, adding to the tense atmosphere. Catherine looks up, a hint of surprise on her face. The Emperor and Catherine face each other, the air thick with unspoken history and tension. Catherine finds the Emperor's intense gaze uncomfortable and coyly asks if this is his first time seeing her. Internally, however, she muses that's impossible, as it would be a crime to forget such a handsome man. Her expression turns serious as she internally wonders how she should bring up the name Haniel. As all eyes in the hall fixate on the Emperor, a bead of nervous sweat drips from Catherine's brow. The Emperor's red eyes glint with irritation as he grips the hilt of his sword. His sons react with confusion, with one of the princes asking aloud about a dance. The Emperor addresses the room, telling everyone to act as they normally would, whether they dance or swing swords. He glares, internally commanding the person staring at him to stop at once. Catherine observes his foul mood, thinking to herself that he's a true tyrant, and it's no wonder his sister ran away. Rebecca steps forward, taking Catherine's hand and suggesting to the Emperor that he might find it stuffy inside. She sweetly invites the Emperor to step outside with her, away from prying eyes, to see the new white horses. When the Emperor asks with whom, a flustered Rebecca asserts that she, the eldest daughter of Evendel, will guide him. The Emperor counters that her stepmother is the legal head of the house, causing Catherine to internally cheer for the tyrant. Clenching her gown, Rebecca stammers that while that may be true, she has a reason. Rebecca tells the Emperor her mother isn't in a condition to entertain guests and turns to Catherine for confirmation with a condescending look. Rebecca adds that Catherine wouldn't know the places she'd show him anyway. Catherine's purple eyes gleam with a subtle, confident smile as she prepares her response. As Rebecca tries to prove her point to the Emperor, Catherine cuts in, stating the only place she knows is just Lake Perdium. She finishes coolly, leaving Rebecca looking confused. Rebecca whips around, her expression one of pure shock at the unexpected mention of the lake. Catherine calmly lists the lake's mythical inhabitants, large-billed birds, giant turtles, and the legendary seven-colored lynx. With a sly smile, she asks if it sounds familiar, adding that Rebecca's own little sister is one of them. The Emperor steps forward, his interest piqued as he declares that it doesn't sound bad at all. He moves closer to Catherine, their proximity filling the air with a palpable tension. His sharp red eye fixates on her, watching her intently. Leaning in, he startles Catherine by asking what on earth she is looking at. Before she can answer, his gloved hand gently lifts her chin, forcing her gaze upward. He pauses, holding a tiny thorn he has just plucked from her skin. He displays the thorn he removed, an act that surprises Catherine and visibly irritates Rebecca. The Emperor smirks, remarking that it seems the Duchess has quite a lot to show him after all. Catherine is completely baffled, wondering internally if he is being sarcastic. Catherine confidently assures the Emperor he won't regret visiting, but he coolly challenges her, asking what happens if he does. Caught off guard, she admits to herself that she hadn't actually considered that possibility. The Emperor turns and walks away, framed by an illusion of thorny, blooming red roses. Rebecca grabs Catherine's arm from behind, furiously demanding to know what she's plotting. While Rebecca demands answers, Catherine calmly complains that she is wrinkling her dress. Rebecca seethes Catherine's name, but Catherine coolly advises her to lower her voice. Rebecca warns that this won't end well for her, but Catherine simply returns the threat to her dear daughter. Catherine says she won't discuss the curse, prompting Rebecca to call her a fool for believing it and asking who would trust her. Rebecca smirks, dismissing Catherine as a witch babbling nonsense without a shred of evidence. When Rebecca taunts her, Catherine retorts that she needs no other evidence, as her own body is the proof. Catherine reflects on her infamous reputation as the Northern Witch, knowing that no one would believe her word alone. With quiet intensity, she thinks to herself, "Don't you understand?" She faces Rebecca with grim resolve, realizing she has nothing left to lose. Rebecca scoffs that Catherine's death would change nothing, but Catherine challenges the assertion. With a triumphant smirk, Catherine delivers a devastating blow. If she dies, Rebecca will never become empress. Rebecca is stunned into silence, able only to mouth a shocked, "What?" Catherine reflects on how strange it was that Rana, who had everything, deliberately delayed her marriage, realizing she was waiting for a specific groom. She inwardly chides herself, wondering why she didn't realize the truth sooner. Catherine admits that her revulsion for Rana blinded her, but now she recalls the memory of Rania's flushed, adoring face as she gazed at the palace. In a flashback, Catherine, dressed in black, recalls asking a question to a white goose by a lake, having first checked with a Lady Mellow. She remembers asking why His Majesty the Emperor has not yet married, speculating about unusual procedures or regulations. The goose explains that the 3-year mourning period for the late Emperor and Empress is almost over, then mischievously asks Catherine why she is smiling. Returning to the present, Raina grabs Catherine and furiously demands to know who told her their secret, but Catherine coolly replies she didn't need to hear it from anyone. Leaning in, Catherine cruelly taunts Rana, pointing out that if she is a witch, then Rana is simply a witch's daughter. Catherine continues her verbal assault, pondering the difference between being rumored a witch and becoming one, and questioning if Rana could still be empress if her mother died a violent death. She calmly tells a stunned Rana that she is content with her life now and that Rana should focus on her own ambitions. With a final condescending smile, Catherine advises her esteemed eldest daughter to simply focus on her bridal training. Having won the confrontation, Catherine walks away from the palace with her basket, the wind whipping through her hair. Looking back at Rana, Catherine thinks to herself that she can't just lay low forever after this. As she walks toward a serene shoreline, Catherine resolves that her involvement will be over once she returns Haniel. Surrounded by blooming flowers, Catherine sadly reflects that it's finally time to say goodbye. In a lush garden, a duck named Celine asks if Madam is coming out, and Catherine responds by calling the duck's name. Catherine asks Celine about the little chick in the basket, and Celine reports that the chick has been completely silent. Catherine dismisses the duck, but a worried Celine asks if she will be all right on her own. Catherine ignores the question and gently lifts the sleeping white chick from the basket. She sits in the sunlit grass, holding the small creature close to her dress. A bright red ribbon unfurls against a backdrop of flowers. Catherine carefully ties the red ribbon around the little chick's neck, affectionately calling her our princess. She smiles warmly, nuzzling the now adorned chick with affection. Her joy is bittersweet as she reflects that even if Haniel calls her mama and fulfills her dream, she can no longer be the child's mother. The small chick, its eyes now a glowing red, happily waddles after Catherine through a field of purple flowers. The chick explains that her teacher said this could hurt her mama, so she shouldn't do it. Catherine's eyes well with tears, deeply moved by the little chick's innocent concern for her. Overcome with emotion, Catherine promises the little one that it doesn't hurt, she won't be abandoned, and that mama will do better. With renewed purpose, she resolves to be a good mother for even one day, no matter what happens to her own life. The little chick sadly states she won't call her mama, causing a panicked Catherine to desperately insist that she is her mama. Sobbing, Catherine promises that even if she can't raise her as a princess, she will raise her to be the happiest baby swan in the world. Crying tears of joy, Catherine embraces the chick, exclaiming, "My baby." A moment of peaceful connection is shared between them in the sun-dappled grass. Watching from a distance, one of the Emperor's sons, Tenon, is warned by his brother not to get too close to the unstable Duchess. The brother who spoke smiles slyly, thinking that Catherine must have her reasons, as the Emperor and his sons continue to observe her. One of the princes wonders aloud what Catherine's story might be, turning to the Emperor for his thoughts. When another son suggests His Majesty should approach the Duchess, the Emperor sharply refuses. The Emperor glances back coldly, asking why he should intervene. His sons suggest calling for Princess Rana to handle the situation, but the Emperor dismisses that idea as well. He continues watching Catherine from afar, conceding that her claim about having a show for him was at least true. Now transformed into a large black swan, Catherine arrives at a moonlit lake with the chick, silencing a panicked Celine by reminding her the baby is asleep. The swan explains she waited at their meeting place, but Celine never came, to which the duck replies with a confused, "Really?" Celine nervously tells the swan not to speak, feeling she's being drawn into a conspiracy. The swan argues that a mother needs a nanny, prompting Celine to ask why she is being stared at so murderously. Spreading her wings majestically, the swan prepares to tell Celine something surprising, making the duck tremble with fear. The swan strikes a dramatic pose, while Celine pleads for a moment, as the swan reflects on her own actions that day. A sweating Celine walks away, thinking she's not of the right status to raise the child, and wishing the swan would stop talking. The swan reveals the shocking truth. The baby chick's brother is the emperor, causing Celine to literally freeze solid in shock. Ah. Celine screams and flies away in a blind panic as the swan calls her name. Celine chaotically crashes into a flock of other ducks, earning an irritated glare from the swan, who demands to know what she is doing. Trembling with fear, Celine buries her head in the grass, vowing to pretend she heard absolutely nothing. The black swan angrily grabs the trembling duck's beak, demanding to know what she's saying and insisting that Haniel is Rohan's one and only princess. The duck argues that the parent-child relationship is determined by heaven, questioning how a black swan and a white chick could be mother and child, but the swan is divinely validated by angelic figures. A wave of realization washes over the black swan as she collapses, understanding that this must be how Haniel felt. The duck questions the swan's sudden change of heart, reminding her of her solemn decision to return the chick. The swan explains she met the chick's brother, the emperor, but the duck retorts that he clearly failed as a guardian. Declaring she can't give up now, the swan holds up 2 wingtips to begin negotiations, offering 30 fish cakes a month. She dramatically increases her offer to 40 fish cakes, leaving the duck stunned by the sheer audacity of the bribe. The duck taps the swan's wing in agreement, sealing the deal with a look of shared determination. As the swan joyfully announces to the chick in the basket that she has a nanny, the little one wakes and sweetly calls out, "Mama?" Meanwhile, in a grand office, a kneeling aide reports to the emperor that the duchess has been acting as regent since the late duke's injury. The aide continues his report, explaining that the isolated northern region is heavily dependent on the ducal family. The emperor wonders about the stepmother's ambitions, considering she married a duke old enough to be her father. The aide explains the duchess's weak position, citing her lack of lineage and her father's reputation as a drunken, polygamous baron. The emperor listens intently, his expression serious, as he absorbs the details of the duchess's precarious situation. Turning from the window, the emperor demands to know what other rumors exist that could disqualify the duchess, startling the nervous aide. The aide recounts rumors of her witch lineage, unstable mind, and possible involvement in the duke's death, but the emperor dismisses the witch talk as old news. Surrounded by question marks, the aide grows flustered under the expectant gazes of the emperor and his sons. The emperor quietly touches the brooch at his neck, lost in thought as he considers the information. He laughs, dismissing the rumors as nonsense, prompting the confused aide to ask if they aren't true after all. The aide nervously admits he's not even sure the duke and duchess properly met, to which the emperor smirks, asking, "Is that so?" He recalls seeing the duchess weeping by the lake, wondering why she was in such a state if the rumors were unfounded. The aide explains that Princess Rainia's efforts have buried any questions about the duchess, ensuring no one dares challenge the House of Ivendell. The emperor realizes that as long as the princess's reputation grows, doubts about the duchess will continue to fester. With a determined glare, the emperor listens as the aide confirms that even the ducal vassals serve the duchess without question. The emperor sharply turns and asks the aide to declare his master, prompting a stammered pledge of loyalty to the emperor. Standing over the terrified aide, the emperor is glad he won't need to issue a violent reminder of who keeps his family fed. His point made, the emperor coldly dismisses the shaken man from his presence. Now at his desk, the emperor senses his son's hesitation and asks what's troubling them, prompting one to ask about the rumor that the duchess harms children. The emperor's hand pauses over his document, and his sons watch anxiously as he silently considers the question. He firmly sets down his quill, decisively stating that she is not a witch who would harm children. As a sealed black letter is presented, the emperor resolves that they will discover the truth when they finally meet her. One of his sons offers to meet the duchess separately so the emperor can focus on Haniel's case, but the emperor firmly refuses. The emperor, looking troubled, speculates that the two matters might be connected, especially if the duchess truly is a child-harming witch. As an aide recalls the emperor's earlier contradictory statement, a sinister, blue-haired figure on a throne illustrates the lingering suspicion. One son, Peyton, notes the northern nobility is full of warriors due to its strategic location, which his brother affirms. The emperor challenges their assumption, pointedly asking how many of those supposed martial knights they actually saw at the last banquet. His sons are taken aback, unable to recall any notable warriors, and begin to question the official story of the Duke's death. After instructing an aide to deliver the letter, the Emperor sighs and turns to Peyton, asking what he has learned so far. The Emperor expresses doubt that a simple letter will reach the correct person, hinting at a more direct plan. With a cunning grin, he holds up his brooch, explaining that it is the key to the most secluded part of the mansion. A brilliant flash of light signals a magical transition, shifting the scene away from the palace. In a sunlit room filled with yellow flowers, Catherine, now human, holds the little chick who asks, "Mommy, is that you?" To which she happily confirms. When the chick asks if she's the Black Swan, Catherine clarifies she's Mommy, prompting Celine the duck to wryly comment that she's living recklessly. Catherine sweetly tells Celine she's the only one she trusts as a nanny, while Celine privately bemoans being chosen for the role. Catherine gently asks Haniel how she was able to recognize her, even after she transformed from a swan. Overjoyed, Catherine bounces around on the chaise, marveling that her little princess can talk just like the lake people. Cradling Haniel, Catherine states she must make future plans, piquing the chick's curiosity. Celine presses a sweating Catherine, asking if she truly has a plan, forcing Catherine to stammer that of course she does. Catherine has a sudden, sharp realization. She didn't just hire a nanny, she brought home a sister-in-law. She announces their first step is school, and when Celine assumes it's the strict etiquette academy, Catherine confirms it's a necessary, heartbreaking choice. With a confident expression while holding Haniel, Catherine seems to have a plan, making Celine the duck suspicious. The little chick, Haniel, looks up with teary eyes and asks her mommy where she is going. Haniel cries, "Wah," saying her brother is scary, but Catherine lovingly reassures her that she won't be going to him. In a moment of quiet resolve, Catherine vows to protect Haniel until someone else who can shield her from loneliness appears. While Catherine promises to stay with Haniel, Celine the duck questions if she really plans to keep calling the princess by her common name. Celine sarcastically suggests terrible nicknames like Chick, 2 Feet, or even Boiled, since she'll eventually become Boiled Chicken. Catherine gently holds Haniel, smiling as if she has settled on the perfect name. A narrative panel reveals that, in the original story, Haniel was the name the princess used after her true name was stolen. Peeking through a door, Celine concedes the name is not bad, and suggests a celebratory fish cake party, asking if that's the whole plan. Celine's sudden shout of, "Mamadam!" startles Catherine and the chick. A knock sounds at the door, and the group is alarmed by the silhouetted figure standing outside. Catherine wonders who it could be, reasoning that neither Rana nor Rebecca would ever knock so politely. Opening the door, Catherine is met by the unexpected sight of a young, blonde-haired man. The man touches the brooch at his collar, apologizing and asking for her to understand the circumstances that forced his visit. He formally introduces himself as the 3rd Imperial Prince, Peyton, leaving Catherine to stammer in shock. Peyton explains that the Emperor has instructed him to deliver a letter, which he presents to a tense Catherine. He further informs her that His Majesty will be visiting soon, a fact she quietly processes while staring out at the estate. After Peyton departs, Catherine collapses to the floor by the window, completely overwhelmed by the news. Holding the black, sealed letter, Catherine realizes with dread that she needs to completely revise their plans. A promotional image showcases Catherine in a black dress with red roses in her hair, advertising the series. In a dark, mysterious scene, a disembodied voice notes that those who use black magic don't always show outward signs. The Emperor's aide reports on rumors surrounding black magic users, describing their black hair, emotional instability, and stunning beauty, prompting the Emperor to ask what else he knows. Prince Peyton confidently declares it must be that woman, but his green-haired brother warns him to be careful. The Emperor asks his aide if that is all, who then adds he's heard black magic can dominate a person's mind. Learning that breaking free is nearly impossible, the Emperor grimly acknowledges the severity and vows to uncover any user for Rohan's sake. Prince Peyton returns to the throne room and formally announces his return to the Emperor. Asked about his meeting, Peyton reports that the Duchess was flustered, but expressed great respect and eagerness to meet the Emperor. The Emperor listens with a skeptical expression while another prince voices concern about what will happen if she truly is a witch. The Emperor dismisses the witch concern, stating that with Haniel and other suspicious activities in the north, they have bigger problems to solve. His sons agree with his assessment as the scene transitions with a floral backdrop. The Emperor muses that there are only 2 notable women in the north, a saint and a villain, and finds it interesting to watch and see which is which. When one son suggests also watching Princess Rana to speed things up, the Emperor dismisses the idea, implying one is a proxy for the other. The Emperor smirks while picturing Catherine, admitting that he much prefers this one. Standing before the magnificent estate, Catherine feels that it's no place for a sinner like herself. She takes a deep breath, steeling her nerves and telling herself to calm down. As a butler guides her forward, Catherine strengthens her resolve, vowing to play her part perfectly to protect the child she loves. Seated on his throne, the Emperor finds Catherine's cold eyes to be strangely familiar. Catherine has a flash of insight, realizing the Emperor's eyes are just like Haniel's when she used to beg to be held. The Emperor catches her expression and asks if she's smiling, causing her to panic internally about their striking resemblance. He remarks that the Duchess seems to be enjoying herself, a comment she quickly and frantically denies. Catherine puts on a sorrowful act, claiming she has been mourning alone since the Duke's death and couldn't possibly feel amused. The Emperor presses further, asking if she has any memorable events or knows any notable people from her time there. When he asks if there's really nothing, she cheerfully insists there is not. Internally, Catherine thinks that if she mentions her Haniel, he will surely kill her. The Emperor suddenly yells, "Enough!" making Catherine inwardly curse his reputation as a tyrant. Catherine respectfully excuses herself, her thoughts lingering on his mention of that day. Her eyes widen in horror as she processes the implication of his words. She nervously asks what day he means, but he coolly asks if she truly doesn't remember. Catherine angrily retorts that she waited for him until nightfall, shifting the blame for the missed meeting onto him. Panicking, she flashes back to her loving moments with Haniel, terrified that the Emperor saw everything but vowing never to give up her child. The Emperor asks if she waited for him, and Catherine smoothly replies that she did, with an anxious heart. He gives a knowing smile, making Catherine internally question why he's laughing again. Internally, Catherine scrambles for excuses, insisting whatever he saw was a misunderstanding and she had reasons for not meeting him sooner. Feigning composure, she expresses regret that he missed the beautiful lake, while internally celebrating that he didn't see anything. As Catherine attempts a hasty, self-deprecating departure, the Emperor stops her short, asking if she's leaving already. She freezes, a sense of déjà vu washing over her as she wonders why the situation feels so familiar. The Emperor casually mentions the princes are waiting with refreshments, but Catherine claims she has urgent matters to attend to. He mockingly questions her urgency, asking if all she does is stare at the lake, leaving her speechless. The Emperor slyly suggests she have some sweets, commenting that she looks like she's about to be eaten. His words trigger a terrified memory of being chased, leaving Catherine stunned and wide-eyed. Now seated for tea with the Emperor and his sons, Prince Peyton asks if she likes the tea, offering to get her a different kind. Catherine internally panics, realizing with dread that she saw the Emperor and his sons lining up at a dessert shop. The Emperor remarks that he found her extraordinary even then, to which she nervously feigns surprise. Outwardly agreeing with him, Catherine internally scoffs that 3 royal men lining up for cake is anything but ordinary. She apologizes for her earlier disrespect, and the Emperor coolly states that he believes her. He adds a chilling threat, clarifying that otherwise, she wouldn't be having tea with her head still attached. When the green-haired prince insists on repaying her, Catherine nervously declines, but the Emperor interjects that he certainly minds. Facing the intimidating Emperor, Catherine internally praises Haniel for having the sense to run away from home. Peyton tries to de-escalate, reminding the Emperor that the Duchess claims she was unaware of their identities. Catherine looks on with a blush, thinking that Peyton must be the kind third prince and the only sane one among them. Composing herself, Catherine sits with a hand over her heart, a pensive look on her face. She starts to worry aloud about her chest, but the Emperor, looking utterly confused, asks her to pardon him. Catherine quickly improvises, apologizing for hurting his noble chest and blaming her reclusive lifestyle for her foolishness. The Emperor rests his chin on his hand, pointedly asking if she was thinking about the late Duke. He dismisses her actions as an accident, leaving his sons bewildered, and Catherine stammers that she is honored. Prince Peyton kindly offers Catherine a handkerchief. Deeply touched, Catherine thinks how lucky Haniel is to have a brother like him as she accepts the handkerchief. Suddenly, an imposing sword is thrust between Catherine and Peyton, startling them both. Catherine is shocked to see the Emperor, Tenon, holding the sword and glaring furiously. As Peyton urges caution, the green-haired prince calls out Tenon, while Catherine scoffs internally, refusing to accept a handkerchief from a man. Catherine tries to end the meeting, stating that with all misunderstandings cleared, she will go reflect on her actions. Tenon leans back with a skeptical look, questioning if things are truly all cleared up. Catherine's thoughts reveal her desperate plan to retreat with a repentant heart and lie low for a while. She sits frozen at the table, her escape plan foiled. Tenon repeats his question with a cold, piercing gaze, making it clear he doesn't believe her. Catherine is visibly bewildered by the Emperor's unyielding stare. He leans in, reminding her of a promise not to regret something, and demanding to know what it was, causing her to stutter. All 3 royal men fix their intense, synchronized gaze upon her, awaiting an answer. Catherine panics, lamenting that she's not a witty heroine but a widow with children facing an impossible situation. Her wide purple eye reflects her utter confusion. She stares back at the three men, who watch her with unwavering, expectant expressions. Feeling the immense pressure, Catherine thinks their intense stares feel as though they're awaiting a grand prophecy. The three princes look on with surprise and curiosity, reacting to Catherine's sudden, strange behavior. Desperate, Catherine awkwardly compliments Tenen's hair, causing Peyton to stifle a laugh while Tenen remains stone-faced. Internally screaming, Catherine wonders what is wrong with everyone as the bizarre situation drives her crazy. Tenen leans forward, suggesting that by gazing at nature, she might be able to see things others cannot. In a burst of panic, Catherine shouts a warning that someone might be after His Majesty's life. The Emperor and his son's eyes glow red as they stare at her with menacing intensity. Realizing her slip, Catherine inwardly cringes, admitting that was precisely what she was going to say. Leaning closer, the Emperor stares her down and demands to know how she knew that information. Internally, Catherine scoffs at the Emperor's question, thinking about the countless grudges he must have accumulated as a battlefield tyrant. Seeing the surprised looks on the royal men's faces, Catherine internally congratulates herself, thinking, I knew it. To survive, Catherine decides she must be even more serious than them, cryptically mentioning the flow of the northern lake and a prophesied marriage. The Emperor cuts her off with a stern and simple, enough. The scene transitions with a floral overlay, showing Catherine and the Emperor sitting in a tense silence at the tea table. Tenen leans on his hand, observing Catherine with an unwavering, intense gaze. A close-up of the Emperor's red eye reveals a tiny, perfect reflection of Catherine within it. The Emperor continues to stare intently while Catherine looks down, a single tear escaping her eye. The Emperor dismisses her, stating the Duke's steward will see her out, and she responds that she is deeply honored. As she prepares to go, Catherine's foot trembles, reminding herself to leave when told. A stray thought bubble wonders how anyone is supposed to know what the Emperor is thinking. Catherine's inner self reasons that the most important thing is that she is being allowed to live. Standing, Catherine formally announces that she will take her leave. As she turns away, she wishes him a pleasant time, though a wave of dizziness hits her. Her vision warps, and she hears a voice cry out, "Duchess!" as she begins to fall. She closes her eyes, bracing for the impact as she stumbles forward. Suddenly, she is caught and held securely in a man's arms. Catherine is stunned as she realizes the Emperor has caught her, their faces just inches apart. Tenen smirks, remarking that it seems she doesn't actually want to leave. Flustered, Catherine shoves the Emperor away, frantically insisting that she isn't trying to stay. Fleeing down a grand hallway, Catherine thinks that while his intentions are a mystery, one thing is certain. She runs in terror, convinced that if the Emperor catches her, she will surely die. In the aftermath, a prince voices concern for His Majesty's well-being. The green-haired prince angrily swats Peyton's hand away from the Emperor, telling him to back off. Peyton argues that Catherine seemed to have no malicious intent, but the Emperor bluntly disagrees. Clutching his chest, the Emperor looks flushed and completely overwhelmed, surrounded by an aura of white roses. Back at her residence, Catherine calls out with relief for her baby, Haniel. Catherine joyfully reunites with Haniel, while the other duck observes that their reunion is as dramatic as two souls meeting again after a past life. The duck turns in alarm, asking if the Emperor truly said he was taking the princess. Held in loving hands, the tiny duckling Haniel cries, with fat tears welling in her red eyes. Catherine tenderly reassures the crying Haniel that she doesn't have to go to Big Brother. Cuddling Haniel, Catherine reflects on the strength of family and how mothers cannot afford to be sick. When the duck notes Haniel must be heavy, Catherine declines to put her down, wanting to cherish the moment a little longer. The duck asks if the princes were also scary, and Catherine confirms they were strange in their own way. Recalling the meeting, Catherine remembers how all three brothers stared at her with unsettling intensity. The duck suggests their staring was because she's so beautiful, but a flustered Catherine insists that wasn't it. Catherine explains it felt like a witch hunt, leaving the duck to gasp in shock at the severity. She remembers the fourth prince looking like he wanted to rip her hair out at any moment. The duck dryly corrects her, guessing he was more likely planning to behead her than just pull her hair. Catherine shivers, thinking that the Emperor with the reddest eyes was the most frightening of them all. Noticing her blush, the duck asks what she's thinking, but Catherine stammers in denial. She explains she's just shocked, feeling as though she's on an emotional roller coaster of dying and reviving daily. The duck questions why she endures such trouble raising the princess, and Catherine concedes that her life was certainly more peaceful before. Despite her words, she smiles lovingly while holding Haniel, The scene lingers on Catherine, holding the sleeping duckling tenderly in her arms. With a look of grim determination, Catherine clenches her fist as the concerned duck looks on. Standing suddenly, Catherine announces to the duck that they're leaving and to pack their things immediately. The confused duck asks what happened with the Emperor, and Catherine describes him as big, scary, and firm. When the duck asks where he was firm, Catherine quickly covers, claiming she meant the Empire's economy. Catherine has a nightmare where the Emperor looms outside a prison cell, asking what wrong she committed, while she realizes the torment of a guilty conscience. A mysterious voice questions Celine's sudden hesitation to leave after being so eager before. The duck nanny watches Catherine with a contemplative stare, thinking, "Look at her." The duck questions Catherine's plan to leave, reminding her that the princess's entrance ceremony is coming up soon. Catherine is aghast, dismissing the idea of school entrance exams during wartime and clarifying her plan is for them all to live together. Catherine scolds the duck for its sudden obsession with school, but the duck insists it just knows the princess is destined to go. The adorable duckling, Haniel, peeks out from a basket, winking sweetly. As Catherine lovingly greets the awakened Haniel, her inner voice furiously blames the duck for waking her up. Haniel asks if she's going to school, but Catherine quickly reassures her that she doesn't have to, reminding her of the scary teacher Mello. The duck frantically corrects her, saying the teacher's name is Michin, and urges the not fully awake princess to come to her. The duck tenderly wipes Haniel's face with a cloth, saying they need to wash up. Catherine grows suspicious, demanding to know what the duck really is, while the nervous duck feigns confusion. Now certain the duck is suspicious, Catherine orders it to put Haniel down and follow her, but Haniel pipes up that she likes the nanny. Haniel pleads with her mom not to yell at the nanny, saying it's scary. As Haniel insists the nanny stay, Catherine thinks this is the duck's manipulation, which it frantically denies. Haniel explains that, unlike the scary palace nannies, the lake nanny is kind and doesn't yell. Haniel affectionately cuddles the duck nanny, happily declaring that she is nice. Seeing Haniel's devotion, Catherine begins to tear up, and the duck gently tells her it's okay to cry. The duck collapses in a dramatic apology, confessing it only wanted to steal leftover fish cakes and get the princess to sleep. The duck continues its performance, declaring itself unworthy, but Catherine sternly cuts it off with a sharp, "Enough." Catherine glares at the sweating duck, letting it know she sees right through its dramatic act. Softening, Catherine acknowledges Haniel's endurance and asks if the palace nanny really treated her poorly. Haniel puffs out her chest, aggressively demonstrating how the mean palace nanny used to act. Haniel reveals the palace nanny would ignore her hunger and tell her not to call because it was tiring, leaving Catherine horrified. Catherine's expression turns cold and menacing as she learns of the cruelty her baby endured. She realizes Haniel's attachment was born of neglect, as no one in the entire palace showed her affection. Catherine asks Haniel why she didn't tell her strong oldest brother about the mistreatment. Crying, Haniel explains that her brother Rasheed was even scarier and would mum at her. Bewildered by the term mum, Catherine comforts the crying Haniel and asks what her brother did. Haniel happily clarifies that her brother simply told it to go away. The duck nanny misinterprets, asking if the Emperor brought a big dog and ordered it to bite the princess. Catherine clarifies the Emperor only told the dog to go near her, which Haniel confirms, praising the duck. The duck cries, condemning the royal family for treating a baby so cruelly, and a pained Catherine agrees. Laughing through tears, Catherine's motherly pride is wounded by her complete misunderstanding of the situation. Haniel complains that maids took her food, and Catherine consoles her while the duck asks about Catherine's strange talent. A fierce, tearful Catherine declares that Haniel is her daughter because she was the one who found her. Haniel asks again about school, bringing Catherine's focus back to their immediate plans. Catherine promises Haniel they'll go to school later at a new lake, where she can make new friends, and Haniel agrees. Fueled by righteous anger, Catherine recalls the palace nanny telling Haniel she couldn't go to school, her resolve hardening. The duck passionately urges Catherine to send her, and Catherine agrees with fiery determination. They will attend the entrance ceremony. Her true plan is revealed. She will hide their luggage, attend the ceremony, then grab Haniel and make a perfect escape. Haniel asks about her head, and Catherine confirms with a smile that she is making a promise. Catherine drills Haniel on her cover story, reminding her to use the name Raina in front of Teacher Mello. Catherine watches proudly as the duck and Haniel waddle off, practicing their roles for the escape plan. Clutching her packed suitcase, Catherine bids a silent, hopeful farewell, praying they will all meet again alive. She stands determined in a garden with her suitcase, the grand estate behind her. Hurrying down a forest path, Catherine thinks she needs to move quickly. A voice suddenly interrupts her, mockingly asking if she's going somewhere fun. Catherine turns to find a smirking, white-haired woman named Rana blocking her path in a lavish gown. Rana confronts Catherine, saying she knew Catherine's insolence meant she would try to run away again. Tauntingly, Rania asks if Catherine has lost her mind and thought escaping a second time would be easy, but Catherine warns her to watch her words. Rania smirks, telling her mother that she should be the one who's careful and be grateful to be allowed to live. Catherine smiles, realizing with an ha what this confrontation is truly about. Catherine questions if Rania is ashamed of her behavior, but Rania furiously screams for her to shut up. Rania threatens Catherine to watch her tongue and not expect to get away, but Catherine defiantly yells back, asking who is running away. A mysterious voice muses about a picnic before delivering a dark warning that Catherine's life will begin and end at this lake. Glowing ominously, Rania demands that Catherine open the basket right now, promising a reward depending on what's inside. Catherine scoffs at the idea of stealing and reveals her mages are coming for her, hinting that Rania knows them well and leaving Rania shocked. The narrative reveals the mage is a dark, cloaked figure who gifted Rania the excessive feathers on her body. Catherine asks what more Rania wants, questioning if she plans to turn her completely into a black swan. Rania smirks, musing that since Catherine's mind isn't right, it would be fitting if her body wasn't either. Rania demands Catherine open the bag to prove she isn't stealing, offering her a chance to beg for forgiveness. A smug, smiling Rania watches Catherine's hesitation. Internally, Catherine seethes with indignation, refusing to beg a woman like Rania and vowing she would rather die. Rania pressures the silent Catherine, tauntingly saying her name as she waits for a decision. Rania presents an ultimatum: show her the box or have her thieving wrists cut off, forcing a defeated Catherine to agree to her demands. The two women face each other in a tense, silent standoff. Suddenly, the Emperor appears, remarking that the Duchess seems to have mistaken what she should be doing as Catherine and Rania look on in shock. The Emperor stands before them, his stern expression framed by an aura of white roses. Catherine and Rania are both stunned by the Emperor's sudden appearance, wondering why he is here. As Catherine turns to face him, the Emperor coolly remarks that she is late. Catherine stares at the Emperor, completely flustered and wondering what she is supposed to do now. The Emperor observes that it seems the two women were in the middle of a serious argument. Rania frantically tries to apologize, but the Emperor cuts her off, coldly asking what there is to misunderstand. Rania nervously explains that she was just worried the Emperor might misinterpret her, raising her voice at her mother. The Emperor sarcastically asks if she means when she, the court lady, was shouting at the Duchess to hand something over. He continues his interrogation, asking if she was questioning Catherine as if she were a fugitive trying to escape. A panicked Rania insists that she can explain the situation. Rania spins a lie, claiming her mother is unwell and she was just helping with her luggage for a picnic, then asks Catherine for confirmation. The Emperor turns to Catherine, asking if she was really just out for a stroll, or if there was another reason. Catherine thinks that if she must reluctantly choose someone to die, it would, of course, be why Catherine suddenly grabs a surprised Rania, loudly declaring that her eldest daughter is absolutely correct. The Emperor watches, thinking to himself that no matter how desperate, you can't enter a tiger's den to avoid a fox. Catherine explains she felt cooped up and came out with her daughter, and a smiling Rania agrees, prompting Catherine to think that Rania wants to live too, which Catherine forcefully grabs Rania's arm, reminding her that she was the one excited for a picnic. Catherine agrees to give Rania what she wants, but internally vows she is not crazy enough to side with the wicked fox. As Catherine opens the basket, she tells Rania she prepared something she likes, shocking her with its contents. Catherine feigns innocence, asking why Rania is surprised and suggesting she's just shy because His Majesty is watching. The basket is revealed to be full of fish cakes, which Catherine proudly claims were made with the finest ingredients for Haniel. Smiling brightly, Catherine presents the basket of fish cakes, thinking to herself that they will surely captivate anyone who isn't human. Rania recoils, refusing the food, but Catherine presses her, asking why she won't eat what was prepared for her. Catherine feigns disappointment, asking if Rania is unsatisfied with her stepmother's gift after being so eager for it. Rania makes an excuse about not eating such things before the Emperor, but he declares it doesn't matter. The Emperor sternly encourages Rania to eat if she wants, stating he doesn't care about such trivial things. Rania stares in stunned disbelief while Catherine smirks, amused by the Emperor's subtle encouragement. With trembling hands, Rania picks up a fish cake and reluctantly takes a bite. Catherine smiles brightly, asking Rania how it is and if it suits her daughter's taste perfectly. The Emperor calls out to the Duchess as he and Catherine observe Rania fleeing, leaving Catherine to think she's now alone with the beast. The Emperor takes the basket, musing that the court lady must have been very busy to leave her favorites, which is not like his daughter at all. Leaning in close, the Emperor whispers to a startled Catherine, asking if there is really a need to rush. The Emperor muses that to any observer, it would look as though the Duchess was truly trying to escape. The Emperor places a hand on a startled Catherine's shoulder as she clutches her basket. Through a frame of thorns, the Emperor remarks that the princess has done something foolish, leaving Catherine confused. The Emperor's hand closes around the hilt of his sword, drawing it from its sheath. With a dramatic flourish, the Emperor swings his sword, slicing away the thorny vines that block their path. The Emperor questions why one would bother with a pathetic attempt to stop someone who is determined to run away, adding there are easier methods. Catherine smiles to herself, thinking that she knew he would prove useful in the end. The Emperor smirks, stating that of course the Duchess has no reason to run away, and a sweating Catherine stammers in agreement. Leaning over Catherine, the Emperor delivers a chilling ultimatum. Don't dare run away before their talk is over, unless she has lives to spare. The Emperor questions Catherine's bewildered expression, stating that he thought he had made himself perfectly clear. Turning away, the Emperor declares that he will be the one to decide where she is going. The Emperor smiles, saying he's glad she understands quickly, for both of their sakes, as a terrified Catherine looks on. The Emperor menacingly questions if the Duchess would dare break her promise to him, while a tiny, sniffling Catherine insists she would not. The Emperor sternly demands she tell him why she is out in the woods. A flustered Catherine claims she was just taking a stroll, but the Emperor eyes her suspiciously, asking why she's dressed so elaborately. Catherine is baffled by his question, thinking to herself, pretty, as question marks swirl around her. The Emperor clarifies his question, asking why she would wear such a cumbersome and elaborate dress for a simple walk. A flustered, blushing Emperor looks away after his outburst. Catherine wonders why he is getting so angry, internally reasoning that she didn't steal the dress but made it from her own feathers. Sighing, the Emperor again demands to know her destination, and a frustrated Catherine finally snaps that she's going to her sister's entrance ceremony. Internally, Catherine admits her real fear isn't the terrifying man before her, but the thought of Haniel being all alone. In a memory, Catherine promises Haniel she will be back by noon as the duckling looks up at her. Catherine's anger flares as she yells at him for asking why, worrying that her timid sister is already crying for her. Catherine desperately offers to explain later and pay any price if he lets her go, to which the Emperor repeats, "Whatever I want?" A close-up shows the Emperor's thoughtful, yet determined expression. The Emperor agrees to her request, deciding there's no reason for her to go to the ceremony alone. At a lakeside school, a voice calls for all the new students to line up. Haniel calls for her mom as the duck nanny offers reassurance, while a large goose, Teacher Mello, asks Raina why she isn't answering. Teacher Mello stares down at Haniel, asking if the duckling recognizes her yet. Haniel nervously addresses the goose as Yellow Teacher, causing the teacher to sparkle with pride. Principal Yellow corrects Haniel, reminding her this isn't her house, and that tantrums won't ensure her survival at the new school. As other ducklings whisper about her, Haniel timidly apologizes with a soft, "I'm sorry." Wah, Principal Yellow sternly corrects Haniel's speech, and as the duckling cries, a new voice announces the arrival of Lady Mello. Eek, a gray swan named Mr. Darren appears, causing a flustered Lady Mello to greet him. Mr. Darren suggests that perhaps Lady Mello could personally reassure the new students. Flattered, Lady Mello deflects, praising Mr. Darren's abilities and presenting the promising young Haniel to him. The gray swan, Darren, introduces himself to the hesitant Raina. Darren leans down to ask if Haniel has something to say, and she stares back, asking if her mommy has arrived. Darren notes that she is a black swan as Haniel explains that her mommy promised to come, demonstrating with a pinky promise. Haniel enthusiastically flaps her wings, describing her mother's big and impressive wingspan. A cruel voice tells Haniel to stop lying, claiming she has no mom, while other ducklings gossip that she only came with a nanny. Haniel trembles as the other ducklings step away from her, leaving her to face Darren alone. Suddenly, Haniel's expression brightens as she spots someone and shouts, "Over here!" Catherine appears among the flowers, joyfully calling out to her baby and announcing that mommy has come. Catherine apologizes to Haniel for being late but proudly states she kept her promise, unaware the Emperor is watching. Covering his mouth, the Emperor wonders what he was expecting and laments having to witness the saccharine reunion. He reflects on how desperately Catherine begged to come here, finding her intense desire to meet this baby bird a mystery. The Emperor recognizes the baby bird from before as Catherine gently encourages Haniel to go on ahead. As Catherine runs past, the Emperor warns her not to try and deceive him, but she yells back, asking why he is following her. Wah! Catherine grabs the Emperor, frantically telling him he was supposed to stay hidden and angrily asking how he could dare show himself. Catherine desperately clutches the Emperor's arm, her grip tightening. Realizing her outburst, Catherine stumbles and frantically apologizes to the Emperor. The Emperor scoffs, questioning if she really expected him to hide behind a tree for pathetic animals, wondering what kind of woman she is. Resigned, the Emperor decides to follow along and uncover the real reason for her bizarre behavior. The Emperor turns, asking what's wrong, but Catherine quickly insists it's nothing. As they stand together, the Emperor senses something is incredibly conspicuous about her, but can't quite place it. Catherine strikes a bizarrely cheerful pose, but the Emperor is unconvinced, thinking something is definitely off. The Emperor scoffs, asking if they came all this way just to see pathetic birds, leaving Catherine appalled at his choice of words. Nervously, Catherine tries to point out an exceptionally adorable bird, but the Emperor remains unmoved. As Catherine beams with a sudden change in attitude driven by survival instinct, a dumbfounded Emperor finds her ridiculous behavior strangely amusing. He considers his own reaction, thoughtfully repeating the word amusing. The Emperor reflects that the most amusing part of the situation is him, the Emperor, actually hiding behind a tree with this strange woman. As Catherine continues her act, a vein pops on the Emperor's forehead, betraying his growing irritation. She continues her over-the-top performance, while the Emperor watches with a look of utter exhaustion. Surrounded by an illusion of beautiful flowers, Catherine asks him, "Isn't it just so beautiful?" The Emperor bluntly shuts her down with a simple "no," leaving Catherine visibly dejected. Snap! As Catherine tries to sneak away, the Emperor thinks to himself, "Right, is that so?" An anger mark appears on the Emperor's head as he watches her slowly inching away from him. The Emperor falls silent, his arms crossed as he watches her with a tense, unreadable expression. As Catherine carefully tends to some flowers, the Emperor suddenly asks if that bird over there is hers, catching her off guard. He clarifies his question, and seeing Haniel with the other ducklings, Catherine nervously agrees that the little one is cute. They both stand and watch the group of small birds gathered by the water's edge. The Emperor watches a trembling Catherine, a silent question mark appearing as he tries to understand her strange reaction. Internally, Catherine forces herself to remain calm, reminding herself that rank is everything while the Emperor continues to stare. The Emperor finds her current reaction preferable, thinking it might yield clues as his hand rests on the hilt of his sword. Yet, he can't understand her intense reaction, as all the birds look the same to him, leaving him even more confused. The Emperor abruptly turns to leave, and a panicked Catherine calls out, asking where he is going. He glances at the ducklings and dismissively states that they are nothing more than baby birds. His shadow falls over a single baby bird as he looms over it, his gaze sharp and intense. From the water, the baby swan stares back at them, and the Emperor notes its direct gaze. The baby swan begins to flail and sink, and the Emperor realizes with surprise that it's not a doll. A thought notes that despite being a baby swan, it's sinking because it can't swim properly. The Emperor coldly thinks that surely the Duchess can see what's happening, as Catherine watches in pale horror. Kai. A terrified scream echoes as the other birds scatter in a panic. Catherine plunges into the water, shouting for everyone to move aside as she frantically searches for her baby while the nanny bird calls out in concern. Wading deeper, Catherine calls out for her baby and internally blames the scoundrel Emperor, wondering how his gaze could have caused this. She furiously vows that if anything happens to Haniel, she doesn't care if he's the Emperor. They're all dead. Suddenly, the Emperor grabs her from behind, telling her to move aside because he can't find the bird with her blocking his view. Holding her firmly in the water, he impatiently demands that she cooperate so he can find the damn bird. "If you want to find your duckling," he begins, and a defeated Catherine whispers, "Yes. Anything." "She fell in here," Catherine cries out, but the Emperor calmly replies, "I know." Catherine tearfully begs her baby to come back, promising to do anything, while the Emperor wonders what more she could possibly offer. The Emperor holds Catherine steady as she gently cups the small, limp form of Haniel in her hands. "Baby, open your eyes," Catherine begs, and a faint "ma" whispers from the little bird's beak. Overjoyed, Catherine cries out that her baby is alive and thanks God profusely as the Emperor watches her emotional display. As a divine revelation states that the person in her arms was the first sign, the Emperor softly calls out, "Duchess." The second revelation dawns. She was the only one who could hear the baby's voice, which again whispers, "Ma." Catherine looks up, a dawning realization on her face. The Emperor watches her with a serious, contemplative expression. Her hand trembles as she lightly touches the Emperor's chest, a nervous gesture in the charged moment. As the Emperor holds Catherine, the birds call out in concern, asking about the baby. The Emperor turns to find a goose exclaiming, "Oh my!" in surprise at his presence. The goose frantically tries to pay respect to His Majesty, who internally scoffs, "What's with all these birds?" The Emperor scolds Catherine for jumping into the lake for just one bird, but she inwardly bristles, thinking he's talking about her sister. Catherine passionately defends her actions, declaring the bird is her only family, and asks what else she could do when a child was drowning. With tears in her eyes, Catherine tells the Emperor that he truly doesn't understand anything. The Emperor places a hand on her shoulder, questioning if she's trying to get cursed again, but she weakly protests. Holding the sleeping Haniel, the Emperor looks down and wonders aloud just how great this one bird can be. A flustered Catherine insists it's not just any bird, prompting the Emperor to ask what it is then. She argues that it's a life that deserves respect and protection from adults. He coldly counters her argument by asking what about her own life. Catherine insists she's fine, but the Emperor cuts her off, leaving her to fume internally at his question. Approaching a grand estate, the Emperor instructs his subordinate to prepare a bath and food immediately. Holding Haniel, Catherine nervously asks if the Emperor intends to go inside. He glances back with an annoyed expression, thinking to himself, this woman. The narration describes a lifeless building, unfitting for an emperor, with nothing but dried fish cakes inside. Catherine nervously begs the Emperor's pardon, explaining she fears inviting him into her humble home might cause misunderstandings, especially since she lives alone. Snap! The Emperor tells her to stop making excuses and just admit if she doesn't want him there, causing a panicked Catherine to deny it. Catherine begins to speak about the day's events, but the Emperor interrupts, telling her to forget it and simply keep her promise. As he looks away, Catherine is lost in thought, wondering if what she heard underwater was merely a dream. A close-up shows Catherine looking flustered and surprised in the Emperor's presence. Turning away, Catherine dismisses her thoughts, deciding she must have misheard as she stands before the mansion. Inside, attendants rush to follow the Emperor's orders for a bath, food, and brandy, worriedly asking if His Majesty is all right. Two men express their shock and concern as the Emperor walks into the Grand Hall. The Emperor brushes off their concern, but an attendant insists their fuss is only natural. He reflects that while he's used to such attention, one person, Catherine, clearly didn't see it that way. As his attendants speculate about what happened, the irritated Emperor orders them to move aside. He has a flashback to Catherine in the water, thinking to himself, you're insane. The Emperor stands alone, lost in a moment of quiet reflection amidst the flowers. A blonde attendant leans in close, asking if the Emperor has a fever due to his flushed face. Whap! An enraged Emperor grabs the attendant's head, furiously telling him to shut up. His attendants stare in confused silence at his sudden outburst. The Emperor recalls Catherine's words about the bird being a life, wondering darkly how far this witch will go. Now in a fresh shirt, the Emperor dismisses his attendants, telling them to wait outside and hand over their things. He quietly examines a red ribbon in his hand. He hands the satin ribbon to a confused attendant, dismissing them to rest. The Emperor begins to remove his shirt as an attendant tells him to wait. The Emperor's muscular back is revealed as he pulls off his shirt. Elsewhere, the nanny duck reports that Haniel's ribbon is missing, but Catherine, focused on Haniel, dismisses it as unimportant. Holding Haniel close, Catherine thinks a ribbon is trivial when her baby nearly died. The nanny duck asks if Catherine was caught by Lady Raina while escaping, but Catherine vaguely replies that things just happen that way. Catherine sighs, feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of her new life and body. With fierce determination, Haniel thinks that as a mother, she must do whatever it takes. Catherine gently asks the trembling Haniel what happened, but the baby swan can only respond with distressed noises. Catherine listens, baffled by Haniel's late-night gibberish, admitting her maternal love has its limits for translation. As Haniel babbles about a tree and Big Brother, the nanny duck steps in to translate. Acting as Haniel's professional interpreter, the nanny explains that the princess panicked and sank after the Emperor suddenly appeared. The nanny explains that it's common for young children to freeze up when surprised. Catherine looks shaken, admitting it's not just children. She freezes up the exact same way. In a grand room, a voice softly says, "We're home, so you can call me Mama now." Catherine lovingly cuddles Haniel, while the nanny duck explains that she's already told her everything the princess said. Holding Haniel, Catherine thoughtfully tells the nanny duck that while she's unsure of her reasoning, it's right not to judge others by appearance alone. As the nanny duck flaps excitedly on her lap, asking for attention like Haniel, Catherine warmly agrees to include her too. In a grand room, a woman with gray-purple hair, Rebecca, angrily confronts her silver-haired sister, demanding to know how long she'll remain like this. The silver-haired woman, Princess Raina, glares back with a cold, piercing intensity. Startled by the sudden question, Rebecca nervously asks what she means as Rania demands to know where Ronan is. Rebecca stands before Rania's desk as the princess questions why she keeps inviting that man, asking if it's her duty or if Rania should do it instead. Rania coldly reminds Rebecca that this is a responsibility she took on herself. Rebecca recalls being ordered to watch that woman and laments her failure, blaming her sister's constant torment for her distraction. Trying to downplay the situation, Rebecca insists Catherine didn't actually escape and only had dried fish in her basket. Slam a fist hits the table as someone furiously shouts, "Shut up!" Rebecca flinches as an unseen person wonders what they are doing. Rania coolly tells a hesitant Rebecca to come inside instead of just standing by the door. A man with long black hair, Ronan, appears in the doorway, thinking to himself, as expected of the princess. Ronan smirks, noting the princess seems displeased with his arrival and might still hold a grudge from a past encounter. "No," Rebecca shouts, defending Rania from Ronan's rude comment, but Rania dismisses her, asking why she's still there. A flustered Rebecca quickly agrees to leave, turning away from the tense confrontation. As Rebecca departs, Ronan remarks on the young princess's energetic nature while Rania remains seated at her desk. Ronan then turns his attention to Princess Rania, commenting on her energy as well, but she bluntly asks why he's there. Elsewhere, Ronan examines a cleanly cut wire fence, pondering who could have done it, while a thought bubble questions if it was His Majesty. Rania presses her temple, stressed over her issues with Catherine and now the Emperor, while Ronan suggests the two might be together. "Not a chance," Rania scoffs, dismissing the idea as the scene shifts to the Emperor standing alone at a lavish ball. The Emperor views women with indifference, but Rania, watching from afar, feels fortunate to have bought some time with this distance. Back in the office, Ronan reports to Rania that Catherine knew her place during their last encounter and didn't cross any lines. Ronan continues, questioning why Catherine now dares to defy Raina and even consider escaping, prompting Raina to echo his words. Rania fumes, convinced Catherine's picnic was a ruse and that she was about to submit before the Emperor interfered. Odd. With a cry, Rania collapses dramatically while Ronan stands impassively over her. Enraged, Rania reminds Ronan that he said the Emperor cut the fence and panics about offending him by repairing it on villa grounds. Looking down at her, Ronan tells Rania to stop posturing and say what she really means. Ronan smirks, observing that while Rania is usually rational, she loses her intelligence whenever the Emperor is involved. He wonders why Catherine, who knows leaving means death, would take such a risk now, as Rania listens with a troubled expression. Rania's expression hardens with resolve. Ronan suggests that a woman with nothing to lose would only risk death if she found something worth dying for. The scene shifts to Catherine's home as someone happily sings for Haniel, their princess. Catherine and the nanny duck frantically search for someone, crying out that she's gone. Catherine comforts Haniel, reassuring the worried baby Swan that mommy is right here. Haniel looks up with wide eyes, upset that her ribbon is gone. Catherine realizes the ribbon is indeed missing, and as she holds Haniel up, the baby Swan spots Big Brother in the distance. Catherine muses that the lost ribbon is trivial and resigns herself to Haniel, calling the Emperor their big brother. As Catherine sits with Haniel, the nanny duck, Celine, scurries in, explaining she came because the princess was absent for days. Catherine questions Celine's recent shady behavior and asks where she's going. Spreading her wings proudly, Celine asks Catherine to please pay attention to the princess. Catherine is secretly thrilled, thinking to herself how exciting it is that her baby now has a homeroom teacher. Playing along, Catherine asks Haniel if it's true that she has a homeroom teacher. Catherine recalls Lady Harlow mentioning a strict new teacher and asks Haniel if she's nice. Catherine corrects the nanny duck, reminding Haniel that it was her big brother who saved her, leaving the baby Swan looking confused. Haniel trembles, trying to utter the name Rianne. Celine notices Catherine's slight cough and suggests she take medicine for her cold. Catherine smiles, feeling content that even if she's sick, she finally has a family to care for her. Giving a thumbs up, Catherine tells an excited Celine that she has a secret plan, but to just wait and see. As Catherine worries that Celine doesn't believe her, the nanny duck excitedly exclaims that she knew her madam had a plan all along. Catherine asks Haniel if her fever is gone, but the flapping baby Swan is only concerned about her missing ribbon. Catherine gently asks if Haniel was upset, and the baby Swan sadly confirms that mommy gave her that ribbon. Holding the crying Haniel, Catherine promises to buy her a new one, even if it has to be in the next life. Celine offers to weave a replacement ribbon from her nest, surprising Catherine, who asks when she even built one. Celine explains that she saves these things, as she can't take them with her when she dies. Flapping excitedly, Celine presents an ornate woven basket with a large pink ribbon, asking a shocked Catherine if this was also part of her plan. Elsewhere, a blonde attendant confirms to the Emperor that he delivered the item, leaving it at the door as ordered. The attendant explains he left the delivery because it was a duck, not a swan, prompting the Emperor to question the difference. As the Emperor holds a sword, his attendant casually dismisses the distinction between a duck and a swan as unimportant. The two attendants are inwardly shocked that their older brother, the Emperor, would even bother distinguishing between swans and ducks. The Emperor sits alone by the window, having spent most of his time brooding in his room. His two attendants watch with concern, whispering that His Majesty seems deeply troubled and might be unwell. A flushed Emperor touches his forehead, muttering about that witch again as an attendant notes his redder than usual complexion. An attendant reports that the large, glowing pearl shows no change, and is, if anything, sparkling even more. The attendants agree they must find the 3-year-old owner of the pearl soon, with one still suspecting the Duchess has something to do with it. When one attendant asks if he's saying she isn't a witch, The Emperor confirms, no, she is, leaving them utterly confused. As the attendants wonder if he means she's a harmless witch, one volunteers to watch her, but the Emperor sharply asks why. Glowing with a furious aura, the Emperor demands to know Tenen's intentions for watching Catherine, making his attendant think he's back to his usual self. Tenen nervously explains he only wanted to lighten His Majesty's burden, but the Emperor calls him naive for thinking he could handle it. The Emperor states that his attendant's involvement would only give him a headache, effectively shutting down the offer. As his attendants agree, the Emperor asks if they've learned anything new about the woman in question. Tenen reports that she is quite obsessed with birds, a fact which baffles his fellow attendant. The Emperor ponders how much she must like birds, while an attendant notes that many black magic users have birds as familiars. The Emperor listens with a thoughtful expression, considering the implications of her connection to birds. An attendant likens the protective feeling to having a newborn little sister, as a flashback shows the Emperor as a boy looking over a baby's crib. The Emperor dismisses the sentiment, calling her a suspicious and fearless woman, as an attendant asks what his plan is. The Emperor reveals he threw out bait because she dislikes meeting people, and his attendants realize he's referring to the gift sent via Prince Peyton. Prince Peyton clenches his fist, looking thrilled and excited by the Emperor's plan. The Emperor watches from his window with a confident smirk, murmuring, "Ha! Of course!" Celine presents a basket overflowing with beautiful pastries from the Duke's mansion, marveling that she's never seen a basket this beautiful. A startled Catherine immediately declares that they are returning all of it, shocking the nanny duck. With a determined look, Catherine knows what this means and begins ordering her servants to prepare a bath with soap and towels. She understands that the basket contains a response to everything the Emperor said to her that day. The basket is revealed to hold not just food, but also fluffy towels, soap, and scented oil for a bath. Catherine feels insulted, thinking the Emperor must pity the crazy witch's pitiful situation. She recalls her own past actions, crying and making scenes before scurrying back to her dark, empty villa. Sitting by the window, Catherine reflects that she has been living this way for a long time. Catherine tells a confused Celine that the gifts are not allowed because they are not from her. Wah! Haniel excitedly appears, wearing her original red ribbon and showing Catherine a box of new ones, exclaiming that her ribbon brought back friends. Catherine covers her mouth in shock, blushing as she thinks this should not be happening. At a lake, Catherine and her birds greet a large white goose named Lady Mellow, who thought they had quit coming. Catherine explains Haniel needed recovery time, but Lady Mellow sarcastically retorts that she, who was kicked by the Emperor, is still here. Catherine silently notes that the old hag is clearly holding a grudge. When Lady Mellow asks why the Emperor came to the lake, Catherine nervously feigns ignorance. Realizing Lady Mellow is out for revenge, Catherine quickly asks if Haniel's time off will be counted as an excused sick leave. Lady Mellow disapprovingly comments on the absurdity of a swan falling into water and causing such a fuss. Catherine happily tells a flapping Haniel that Miss Mellow has allowed her to come back. Haniel proudly assumes it's because she's pretty, and Catherine agrees, praising her fine taste. Holding Haniel, Catherine asks Celine to agree how pretty she is, and the nanny duck calls the sight a divine gift. Catherine looks away, internally questioning what the perpetually grumpy Lady Mellow could possibly be staring at. An elegant gray swan named Darren introduces himself to the Duchess, as Haniel and Celine watch in awe. Darren compliments Haniel's potential, assuring a smiling Catherine that such a bright child will learn anything quickly. Catherine is deeply touched, marveling at finding a handsome, understanding teacher right after dealing with the difficult Lady Mellow. Deciding to make a swift exit, Catherine walks away from the glaring flock of geese before she becomes their next target. As Catherine prepares to leave, Celine asks where she's going, while Catherine entrusts Darren with occasionally checking on Haniel. Celine the duck scolds Catherine for not looking at her while she's speaking. When Celine complains that she's acting like she's being dragged to a slaughterhouse, a grim Catherine retorts, who says I'm not. Catherine and Celine stand at the edge of the lake, gazing at the distant, imposing form of the imperial palace. Prince Peyton informs Catherine that His Majesty is waiting, and she stoically agrees to meet him. Walking toward the palace, Catherine grimly concludes the Emperor's gift was just a summons to pay her overdue taxes. With a sense of dread, Catherine steels herself, wondering how badly the Emperor will interrogate her this time. The Emperor, surrounded by yellow roses, casually asks what she's waiting for, leaving Catherine baffled by his ordinary behavior. Catherine confronts the Emperor, certain he holds a grudge since she caused him to fall in the water, and demands he explain himself. Catherine groans in frustration, as the Emperor simply hums with an unreadable expression. Trying to bargain, Catherine offers to repay her debt with her body, since she cannot afford the ribbon. The Emperor smirks, amused by her vivid image of him, as a flustered Catherine insists that's not what she meant. Holding a document, the Emperor declares he'll live up to her expectations and begins to issue a command as Catherine trembles. The Emperor's command is revealed to be a lavish meal, complete with a perfectly cooked steak. Seated for dinner, Catherine eyes the food suspiciously, wondering if this is a plot to fatten her up before executing her. The Emperor flatly promises not to kill her, but warns a relieved Catherine not to test his patience by asking again. Taking a bite, Catherine is overcome with bliss, wondering if her own princess ever ate so well. When the Emperor asks if the food is not to her liking, she clarifies that it's delicious and was just curious about palace meals. The Emperor's pitying question about how starved she must be leaves Catherine embarrassed and at a loss for words. Mortified, Catherine holds her knife, thinking to herself, "Am I being pitied by a tyrant right now?" She reflects that the Emperor often fails to meet her tyrant expectations, and this moment is another prime example. Turning the tables, Catherine retorts that he's the one to be pitied for losing his sister, leaving the Emperor confused by her look. The Emperor calmly notes there's an exception, as his sister's nanny should be caring for her, but Catherine remains silent. Catherine angrily slams her fork down, declaring that the very nanny he mentions has been neglecting the powerless young princess. As Catherine deduces his sister must be young, the Emperor wonders aloud if she is 2, or perhaps 4. Catherine sips her drink, wryly noting his strange decision to skip the number 3 in his guess. The Emperor clarifies his sister is about 3, and reassures Catherine that she is well fed, as he's ordered she be given anything she wants. When Catherine asks if he's visited his sister, the Emperor admits that the child cries whenever he goes to see her. Catherine's inner chibi self cheekily acknowledges that this is the most honest thing he said all day. With a gentle smile, Catherine suggests his sister must have a reason to cry, and asks if he might have frightened her. Framed by flowers, the Emperor looks offended and proudly declares that is impossible. Catherine presses, asking if he went alone, and the Emperor recalls bringing a dog with him. The Emperor smirks at a memory, as a flashback sound of a child wailing echoes in his mind. While enjoying the delicious meal, Catherine internally questions the Emperor's view of what an ordinary 3-year-old is. Catherine apologizes for the past incident, but the Emperor states it's no longer someone else's business. The Emperor reminds Catherine of her promise and her knowledge of the light's workings. After she confirms she remembers, the Emperor asks her to tell him how she can be of use to him. Catherine nervously lists her skills: palace management, gardening, and cooking animal feed, all of which the Emperor dismisses as useless to him. Eager to please, Catherine adds that she's surprisingly good with people, animals, and plants. The Emperor demands a more special skill, so Catherine proudly details raising an ostrich and making fertilizer, prompting him to cut her off. As Catherine tearfully assumes he dislikes her skills, a panicked Emperor grabs the teapot, asking what he said to upset her. Catherine calmly pats his hand, explaining that his flustered reaction is exactly the kind of thing she means. She smiles, confidently telling the Emperor that she's used to disapproving looks and no longer gets hurt by them. The Emperor declares her current self is perfect, and instructs her to simply come to the palace every day to spend time with him. Gasp Catherine is stunned by his proposal, as the Emperor leans in, remarking that her status as moderately highborn and free is ideal. The Emperor coolly informs Catherine that she will be his official excuse for staying in the north. A shocked Catherine asks what he means, but the Emperor simply states that he has his reasons. The Emperor reveals the true reason. His sister, whom he'd mentioned earlier, has gone missing. Gasp. After a delayed reaction, Catherine acts surprised, prompting the Emperor to dryly ask if she's a bit late. He explains that his sister's last known trace was found here in the north. With an intense, red-eyed gaze, the Emperor's determination to find his sister is clear. Catherine internally panics, realizing with a start that she is the one secretly keeping his sister. Click. The Emperor sets down his cup, stating that while she seems safe, he must confirm with his own eyes that she's alive and unharmed. Catherine shouts in horror, calling his words incredibly ominous. Flustered, she insists such a terrible outcome is impossible, and that he shouldn't even imagine it. The Emperor questions her intense affection for a princess she's never met, but Catherine stammers that a princess must be kept safe, thinking of the horrifying fate that awaits her kidnapper and pleading that a baby could do no wrong. The Emperor scoffs at her sentiment, coldly asking if they should let someone who abducted the imperial princess live. Catherine argues that comforting the princess should be the priority, but the Emperor balks at the idea of holding a child. Ha! With a sigh, Catherine changes the subject, asking why he needs her help while he's here. The Emperor explains that as a ruler, he can't stay in the north without a proper reason, as it's already fueling rumors that he's plotting to attack the kingdom of Levante. Catherine flinches, shocked to hear that Levante is the country of the man who is supposed to be Haniel's future husband. Catherine quickly grasps that he needs a different excuse to quell suspicions. and the Emperor compliments her for catching on unexpectedly. The Emperor offhandedly mentions it would be troublesome if Haniel's existence became known, leaving Catherine momentarily stunned and confused. When he asks why she's reacting, a nervous Catherine quickly brushes it off as nothing. The Emperor presses her, asking why she can't do what the princess can, and assures her he won't ask for anything difficult. He thoughtfully considers his plan, gazing at the desserts on the table. A nervous Catherine thinks that if things go well, she might even receive a reward. Startled by the sudden mention of a reward, Catherine listens as the Emperor tells her she can decide what it will be. Suddenly full of determination, Catherine clenches her fists and promises to do her very best, much to the Emperor's amusement. While walking through a garden, the Emperor explains they need to create a convincing appearance for the public. Catherine eagerly suggests joint public projects or tours as a plausible cover story. Filled with renewed purpose, Catherine asks for his plan, ready to follow his lead and do her best. The Emperor tells her to come again tomorrow, and she agrees, realizing she must keep her promise to visit him alone. The Emperor then instructs her to bring her daughter, shocking Catherine, who clarifies he must mean the White Swan, not Princess Raina. Catherine finds his suggestion unexpected and admits she was thinking of a more constructive plan. The Emperor and Catherine stand awkwardly in the garden, a moment of silence between them. A faint, almost imperceptible smile appears on the Emperor's face. Stunned, Catherine internally questions if the stone-faced man actually just smiled. As Catherine starts to protest, the Emperor firmly tells her, no. Leaning closer, the Emperor pointedly asks if she didn't just claim to be good at acting. They stand opposite each other in the rose garden, a silent understanding passing between them. Observing from a distance, Prince Peyton remarks to his companion that the Duchess seems surprisingly innocent and defenseless. The blushing prince recalls the Emperor's declaration that he would be monitoring the Duchess thoroughly. A flustered Catherine quickly runs away from the Emperor and his attendants, hiding her face. The Emperor watches her go, stating that they must at least do this much to maintain their cover. The Emperor smirks, confident the witch will come to her senses, though his attendant worries he's going too far without evidence. The next day, Catherine presents a small duck to the seated Emperor, confirming it's the bird he saw before. Quack. A portrait reveals the trembling duck's name is Raina, complete with a bright red ribbon. When the Emperor asks why she didn't bring her, Catherine feigns ignorance while holding Haniel, and a shocked Raina looks on. Catherine gives a mischievous smile to a terrified Raina, who clearly understands the plan. Flap flap. Raina panics, thinking there's no way the Emperor will mistake a mallard for a swan, but Catherine holds her firmly, insisting it's possible. Winking, Catherine ties a ribbon on Raina's head, confidently reassuring the struggling duck that he really won't know the difference. The Emperor stares in disbelief, asking if that thing has a name, while a horrified Raina notices the eyes of the Hete statues on his throne. The Emperor notes the bird's color is different, but Catherine blames it on wet feathers and points out the new ribbon. He bluntly orders her to get rid of it. Catherine reflects on her conversation, deciding the Emperor isn't entirely a rotten-to-the-core bastard, and that fixing him would be far more reassuring than having a stranger on the throne. Amidst a backdrop of flowers, a thought emerges. It wouldn't be bad to prepare for when their baby eventually returns to being human. Catherine tells the Emperor it's wrong to just keep the bird at home after saying he'd raise it, because even small creatures have feelings. But he coolly asks why. The Emperor thoughtfully recalls the duck's name, asking if it was Raina. Framed by pink roses, Catherine beams with a dazzling smile. Flushed, the Emperor muses she must be bored to name a bird, but after Catherine confirms the name is Raina, he reluctantly agrees. Fine, Raina. As Catherine claims the child knows nothing of the world, the Emperor snaps back, questioning how that's possible when she previously said his sister was 3 years old. Horrified, Catherine realizes he's confusing the duck with his 3-year-old sister. Internally, Catherine calms herself, reasoning that the Emperor isn't being dense on purpose. Changing the subject, Catherine asks if he's ever called his sister by her name, as affectionately as he just did with the duck. The Emperor dismisses the idea, asking why he would. As Catherine and a concerned Raina exchange a look, Catherine presses him, asking if he just barks commands at his sister, and he confirms it, not seeing the big deal. Stating that no one can know another's heart, Catherine turns to the duck and asks, "Right, Raina," which flusters the Emperor as a new idea occurs to her. The Emperor cleverly turns the tables, asking if she knows his name either. Flustered by his unpredictable question, Catherine internally recalls his name as Rasheed, while wondering what he's thinking. Realizing she does know his name, the Emperor says, "Ah, I see," with a subtle, pleased expression. Catherine gazes forward, her expression unreadable but thoughtful, amidst a soft, floral background. The Emperor asks what good knowing his name does her, while she internally worries that using it freely could be considered treason. Catherine finds comfort in her analysis. He might look murderous, But he won't actually kill her, the best quality she's found in him so far. Prince Peyton and his companion arrive, with Peyton noting Catherine's presence and curiously eyeing the bird on the desk. With a confident smile, Catherine introduces the duck as her daughter, prompting a hesitant agreement from the prince's companion. Catherine internally identifies the blonde man as the third prince, hoping he's a bit better than his brother. Snap, as the third prince takes the duck, their hands touch, and Catherine has a sudden flash of recognition. The Emperor's glare intensifies as he questions if this interruption is why the report on his sister is late, making everyone sweat. Catherine quickly apologizes and announces she should take her leave. The Emperor stops her, picking up Raina himself and telling her to take the duck with her. Catherine watches nervously as the Emperor holds the trembling duck. Holding Raina, the Emperor states with certainty that this bird doesn't seem to be her daughter. His red eyes narrow as he questions if she's sure this is her daughter, while a terrified Raina realizes it was his eyes she saw, not a statue's. The Emperor declares the feeling of touch is different, but Catherine deflects by pointing out the bird is wearing the same ribbon. He recalls the sensation of holding his real daughter when pulling her from the lake, noting the clear difference. With a sharp, intense gaze, the Emperor calls out her name, Catherine. Cornered, Catherine apologizes and lies that her real daughter had to go to school. The Emperor points out that the duck looks like it's about to die, but Catherine insists that for this bird, this is being extremely sociable. Catherine internally panics, wondering if the Emperor is angry because she lied to him. The Emperor sternly demands to know why she lied. He scoffs, asking if she truly thought he would stoop so low as to harm her daughter. As he questions her low opinion of him, Catherine stammers that she was just worried he'd be upset. The third prince tries to help, suggesting she must think the Emperor loves animals to have asked her to bring the duck, but Catherine tries to silence him. The Emperor stares down the third prince, ordering him to continue his explanation. Believing all is lost, Catherine apologizes to the duck, now calling her Celine, for getting her into a mess that will lead to their execution. The Emperor erupts in anger, asking who said anything about an execution, leaving a stunned Catherine surrounded by question marks. Flustered, Catherine begins to praise Celine's charms, but the Emperor impatiently cuts her off and tells her to get the duck. Deciding to retreat while she has the chance, Catherine clutches the duck and turns to leave. The Emperor sternly commands her to bring the real one tomorrow, adding that he'll see then, if she does as he expects. As she walks away, Catherine asks herself if he's serious. She sighs, then tells the duck not to say we, as she was the one who started this mess. Outside, Catherine celebrates her narrow escape, realizing her tearful acting and talent saved them. Watching her from the window, the Emperor mutters that if she's going to act, she should do it properly. Prince Peyton observes that the Duchess was quite startled, while his companion reasons that anyone would cry under the Emperor's pressure. With a smirk, the Emperor muses that perhaps he's the only one who can see her true nature. A black swan instructs a group of ducklings to put their heads in the water to find food, and they chirp, yes. A duck named Mac questions why Raina the swan isn't trying to swim, but another reminds him she fell in before and sank, wondering what kind of swan can't swim. Raina internally denies this. As a duck declares she can't swim, a tearful Raina is surrounded by a powerful aura, insisting to herself that's not the reason. The black swan gently asks if Raina is all right, and the small white bird confirms she is. Flap flap. Raina insists she can swim, puffing up with pride as she says her mommy told her she's good at it, but the black swan seems doubtful. Flap. Watching the happy little bird, the black swan remarks that Raina must really like her mom. The black swan leans in and asks Raina if she would like to live with her mom forever, a question that confuses the little bird. An ornate text box defines forever as staying together until the very end, without ever separating. The black swan spots Catherine approaching in the distance, and silently notes that her mother might have trouble hugging her today. The swan worries Raina will be disappointed if her drained mother can't hug her after a hard day, but Raina spots her and joyfully cries, "It's Mommy!" Catherine arrives with a gentle smile, calling out, "Sweetie, Mommy's here, Raina." As the black swan watches from the lake, Catherine holds Haniel close, promising to be on her side forever. Tickle Tickle Catherine playfully asks Haniel what to say when she does this, and the little bird twice responds, "I love you forever, Mommy." As Catherine and Haniel roll playfully on a bed, a nearby duck named Celine dryly remarks that they are always the same. Celine tells a gloomy Catherine to stop pretending, saying it might fool the Emperor, but not her. Catherine explains she must look sad, or people will gossip if she smiles. A hand gently pets Haniel, who winks and sweetly proclaims that she likes Mr. Darwin because he's nice. Haniel shows her mother a chart equating Lady Meow with the big brother Emperor in scariness, far above her original nanny, shocking Catherine. Catherine daydreams about the handsome and warm-hearted Mr. Darwin, wishing the Emperor could be even a quarter as kind as him. Catherine asks Haniel about her brother, and the little bird firmly states that her big brother is scaly, forever and eber scaly. Catherine tries to find a silver lining, asking if there's at least one good brother, but Haniel only confirms she doesn't hate all of them. Haniel clarifies that she likes all her brothers, with the pointed exception of the Emperor, much to Catherine's dismay. Frustrated, Catherine holds her head, thinking that even a beaten child wouldn't be this terrified of someone. A narration explains that, on top of everything else, Haniel now needs to be adored by the strict principal as well. Haniel sweetly asks her mommy if she has to go back to school tomorrow. Squawk. Catherine approaches a large, aggressive white goose with a basket of food. The goose angrily rejects the snack as a bribe, but a frustrated Catherine retorts she can't read its mind and was going to accept it anyway. Dejected, Catherine admits she foolishly just wanted to ask the goose to look after Haniel, prompting Celine to cry out for her. A concerned Celine urges Catherine to go see the Emperor, asking what she will do if she does not bring the princess. Catherine dismisses the idea, explaining Lady Mellow's strictness and Haniel's vow never to see her eldest brother again. The duck, Celine, dutifully follows behind Catherine's elegant black dress. Arriving in the garden, the Emperor questions why Catherine has come empty-handed yet again. Catherine faces the Emperor and respectfully addresses him as Your Majesty. The Emperor and Catherine stand facing each other amidst a garden of beautiful white roses. Catherine nervously wonders if he's hesitant to go with just the two of them, but he looks flustered and she quickly says no. Catherine cheerfully beckons the Emperor over, while he grumbles that all the hills look the same and questions the need to go so far. Catherine points to a distant bird by the lake, but the Emperor grimly identifies it as his sister, curled up and unable to lift her head. Visibly annoyed, Catherine reminds herself to endure, focusing on her true goal for the day. The Emperor smirks, remarking that the bird looks like it might die before the day is over, while Catherine insists he doesn't believe how loving she is. Giving in for the moment, the Emperor says, "Fine, let's say that's the case." Leaning closer, the Emperor challenges Catherine, asking if she's scared he might be right about her daughter. The Emperor proposes a bet, suggesting they can decide the wager later, as a sad Haniel watches from the water. Catherine declares they need to practice. When he asks what, she explains they'll rehearse how to approach a child so Princess Raina will surely open her heart. The Emperor scoffs at the idea, but Catherine argues that all he needs to do is win the bet, regardless of the bird's feelings. She takes his hand, assuring him the task is not difficult. Holding his hand, Catherine explains that if the princess gets scared, she won't even venture out this far. Catherine demonstrates a gentle touch on her own cheek, instructing the Emperor to press lightly as he watches her intently. When Catherine asks if it's too difficult, the Emperor snaps back not to speak nonsense, which she takes as a good sign. With a mischievous smile, Catherine suggests they move on to the real thing, as the Emperor nervously mutters, "Don't press," to himself. The Emperor internally notes that the Duchess is trying to provoke him, but as an empty shell, he finds her every move suspicious, yet intriguing. A proud goose appears, catching the Emperor's attention. He's stunned when it affectionately nuzzles him, certain this must be Catherine's daughter. Catherine urges the Emperor to hurry, while he internally grumbles that there isn't a single normal bird at this lake. The goose performs a deep, respectful bow at the Emperor's feet. The Emperor flatly states the goose is dead, prompting a shocked Catherine to plead with him. A gloved hand, the Emperor's, gently pets the head of the seemingly deceased goose. While the Emperor still thinks the bird is dead, a blushing Catherine internally swoons, praising His Majesty for personally greeting her daughter, an unheard of honor. The Emperor thinks he's done enough practice, while Catherine flawlessly assures him his performance was perfect as the goose radiates with hearts. As Catherine begins to walk away, the Emperor stops her, asking where she's going. She calmly reassures him that she isn't running. Catherine confidently leads the way, deciding to press her luck as the Emperor starts to call her name. Running toward the lake, Catherine joyfully announces, "Baby, Mommy's here." The little white bird, Haniel, looks up from her sullen mood and immediately brightens with joy. Catherine lovingly embraces Haniel among vibrant yellow roses as the Emperor watches intently from a distance. Thump thump, the Emperor clutches his chest, feeling a pang as he watches the tender reunion. Holding Haniel, Catherine triumphantly faces the Emperor, asking with a smile, "See? I was right, wasn't I?" Haniel proudly shows her mother a piece of jerky, explaining that Lady Mellow gave it to her. Catherine praises Haniel for receiving special croaker jerky from Lady Mellow, a treat the other children didn't get. Catherine asks if Lady Mellow praised her, and a proud Haniel confirms that she is a perfect lady. A narration notes that Haniel's aloofness is the spitting image of her brother, and Catherine recalls her daughter had vanished by the closing ceremony. Catherine reassures Haniel that Lady Mellow's good mood was because Haniel is such a good lady. However, she adds it was also because Haniel's big brother put in a good word, causing the little bird's eyes to glow with shock and rage. A terrified Haniel panics, questioning why her brother is at her home and insisting it belongs only to her and her mommy. Still panicked, Haniel worries her brother has come to take her away and questions why he would speak to Lady Mello. Catherine gently reassures Haniel, suggesting her brother wouldn't come all the way to school just to see a child he dislikes. When Catherine asks if Haniel wants to meet him, the little bird nervously clarifies if she means, "Brother, your majesty." Catherine proposes they go together to see if he truly hates her, and Haniel cautiously asks if it will be just the two of them. Both Celine the duck and Haniel the bird look up in surprise, calling out to Catherine. With a serious expression, Catherine instructs the birds to go inside first. Walking outside alone, Catherine calls out into the evening, "Is someone there?" Under a starry sky, she hesitates, wondering if she's made the right choice or not. A narration reflects that other girls, Rania and Rebecca, would have come running with boundless energy. The Emperor appears behind Catherine, coolly observing that she truly has no fear. Startled, Catherine whips around, just as Haniel cries mommy and grabs her dress. The Emperor catches Catherine, who quickly explains she wasn't running away, but simply came out first because he wasn't inside. She nervously insists it's true, but he calmly reminds her she can't leave just because she wants to. Feigning a light-hearted laugh, Catherine touches her own cheek, continuing her demonstration. The Emperor suddenly pulls her close and gently touches her cheek, startling her as he asks if this is how he's supposed to do it. Flustered by his proximity, Catherine stammers her approval, saying it's just right. Standing close together in the moonlit garden, Catherine praises the Emperor, telling him he did very well. After she confirms, he gently drapes a red cloak over her shoulders, telling her she did well. Touching her cheek, a blushing Catherine is surprised by how good he was at the gesture. She triumphantly declares she won their bet, arguing that he didn't see the entire event through to the end. He turns to her with a serious expression, calmly stating that he saw it. Relieved, Catherine admits she had nothing to offer if she'd lost anyway, but he thinks to himself that she's wrong about that. With a knowing look, he states that he knows exactly what he wants. At the palace, Rania asks Rebecca if she is certain she saw everything properly, and Rebecca confirms she did. Rania chides Rebecca for making a mess of her newly fitted dress, telling her to stop since she'll only wear it once. Grabbing Rebecca's arm, Rania questions her sister's strange words, then states she watched Catherine and saw nothing unusual. Rania reports that Catherine only walked around the lake and did not meet anyone or approach the Winter Palace. Rebecca scoffs at the very idea that a woman like Catherine would dare to think of meeting His Majesty. Rebecca insists that she hid and watched the entire time without taking her eyes off Catherine, confirming no one entered or left the villa. When Rebecca points out that other nobles, including Rania, went to the Winter Palace, Rania corrects her, stating no one actually passed through the gate. Rebecca suggests asking the caretaker, Viscount Dion, but Rania dismisses the idea, wondering what the Emperor is thinking. Rebecca internally considers her options, noting Ronan is unavailable and that she must use Rebecca, vowing to give her anything she wants as long as she isn't being deceived. An aide informs Rasheed that he brought Catherine, who is currently with Tenon, and warns that Tenon's dog may cause trouble. Rasheed asks about Kirill, and the aide reports that his second brother is still occupied with managing state affairs. The aide speculates that the Grand Duchess must resent Rasheed, who listens with a stoic expression. The aide elaborates that, with a simplified wedding and Kirill handling everything, it's understandable for Catherine to be frustrated. Recalling an affectionate couple, the aide nervously claims the Grand Duke and Duchess get along extremely well, before worrying about Catherine's impudence. Panicked, the aide begs Rasheed not to execute her for Kirill's sake, prompting Rasheed to wonder what is wrong with them. Rasheed announces a grand ceremony for the Duchess after the mourning period, but a younger brother immediately objects that the eldest must come first. The boy argues that if the Emperor hasn't had a proper wedding, his younger siblings cannot either, leaving Rasheed visibly enraged. Infuriated by the boy's innocent lack of malice, Rasheed decides he will go meet with the magicians again. He orders the boy to start investigating any recent information concerning Haniel, and the boy accepts the task. Rasheed calls out the boy's name, Peyton, who looks up, startled, after Rasheed angrily tells him to get out. A relieved Peyton walks away, thinking that the Emperor is back to his usual self and not cursed. Rasheed stands alone, his expression determined as he gazes out the window. As they walk toward the palace, Haniel asks Catherine if she's very scared to see her brother, and Catherine admits she is. Sniffling, Haniel asks what will happen if the Emperor scolds or kicks her, and Catherine promises to scold and kick him right back. When Haniel asks what if he gobbles her up, Catherine laughs and reassures her that he isn't that much of a monster. Catherine offers to go alone, but Haniel bravely insists on going with her. Holding a trembling Haniel, Catherine reflects that her child isn't normally so timid. Catherine reminds Haniel of the praise she received from Lady Mello and Mr. Darren, and Haniel happily thinks she likes Darren. Now wearing a cute red bow, a determined Haniel calls for her mommy, but Catherine says it's too early for her to be acting this way. Deciding this won't work, Catherine starts to turn back home, but a voice suddenly demands to know where she is going. Rasheed appears behind her, questioning why she's leaving just after arriving, startling Catherine. Flustered by his sudden appearance, Catherine remembers that she should probably greet him. Rasheed dismisses the need for formalities, but she hesitates to reply. Catherine clenches her dress, thinking that even without Haniel present, dealing with him troubles her own feelings. As Catherine asks what he wants, insisting she can't squeeze herself dry, Rasheed interrupts to clarify he never asked her to do anything. He said he would do it, and questions how much more she plans to push herself. A woman with dark hair dismisses an intimate moment, thinking a man with blonde hair only touched her cheek. He questions her presence, and she confirms that the small creature is, in fact, her daughter. Thump thump. Her heart races as he leans in close, their faces only inches apart. She looks down with concern at the small, bird-like creature trembling in her hands. He wonders why the creature is suddenly acting strangely, and she begins to hesitantly explain. The source of the creature's fear is revealed. They have arrived at his imposing mansion. The creature cries out in fear of the Emperor's sky sword, prompting the woman to ask His Majesty to put it away. She connects the dots, asking the Emperor if he was carrying that sword during his previous visit to the palace. He confirms her suspicion as the terrified creature whimpers for its mommy. She asks why he would bring a sword, and he explains that he was simply told the princess would like it. A cheeky vision of the Emperor gives a thumbs up, as if justifying his troublemaking nature, much to her annoyance. A blonde man looks annoyed as Catherine thinks about his previous words, while he muses that getting rid of one person won't solve the underlying problem. A candidate list reveals the first and fourth brothers are eliminated, with specific warning against a man named Tenon for his half-baked knowledge. Tenon boasts that his magnificent sword, imbued with divine power, is something only he can wield, though he admits it might frighten children. Catherine agrees, admitting that even she finds the sword a bit frightening. With a swift motion, he begins to draw the sword from its sheath. Catherine grabs his arm in alarm, pleading with him not to go so far with his precious sword. He looks down at her calmly and asks if she is still scared. Holding Haniel, the woman sees this as a crucial opportunity for the young princess to get close to her brother. A child's voice asks what's wrong, and the woman points out an object on the Emperor's shoulder. The Emperor shows her an ornate brooch, a protected gift from his mother's family, which she thinks looks mismatched. Whoosh. To her shock, he casually tosses the precious family heirloom aside. She presents the now less adorned Emperor to Haniel, trying to reassure her that he isn't so scary after all. He bluntly asks what's next, accusing her of using her daughter as an excuse to see him. She looks away, denying his accusation, and insisting she doesn't care what he does. The Emperor presses her for the truth, and she internally admits that she might actually care about his actions. He questions the real reason her face is turning red, leaving her flustered and speechless. He invites her to sit, all while privately contemplating just how close he is truly allowed to get to her. Seated, she explains that she must hold the child herself, as she doesn't adapt well to unfamiliar places. As she describes how she even has to hold the child while sleeping. The Emperor listens with captivated amusement. Embarrassed by his staring, she deflects by suddenly asking about the name of the princess he lost. She probes further, asking if he intentionally tried to surprise the princess during his visit. She smiles, internally pleading for him to say her suspicion isn't true. He nonchalantly considers that maybe he did intend to surprise her, an answer that leaves her trembling with shock. She's utterly aghast, realizing that explaining the situation to him is a completely hopeless endeavor. She asks if he wanted to make the child cry, but he dismisses it, stating the princess cries at the sight of him anyway. He pauses as a sudden realization dawns. Finally understanding the point she's been trying to make, she rephrases, asking if at least he doesn't dislike Princess Haniel, to which he quietly concedes is true. Overjoyed and relieved by his admission, she clasps her hands together and smiles brightly. The Emperor calmly asks why his feelings toward the princess are so important. She insists he must have visited Haniel out of worry and curiosity, pushing back against his claims of indifference. She happily explains her theory. The princess simply misunderstood his intentions and was surprised, not scared. A quiet moment passes between them after she concludes her enthusiastic analysis of the situation. She coaxes Haniel to come down from her shoulder, but the little one whimpers for her mommy. With her mother's gentle encouragement, Haniel finds her courage and agrees to try approaching her brother. Haniel takes a brave first step, and her mother offers silent words of encouragement. As Haniel toddles across the table, her mother reflects that every great journey begins with a single step. She proudly announces Haniel's success, telling the emperor that the little princess came all this way for him. She gets emotional seeing Haniel's pent-up bravery and feels an unexpected pang of sympathy for the stoic emperor. The emperor tells her to laugh, but she covers her mouth and struggles to contain it, insisting it's not funny. He addresses her as Catherine, seeing right through her act and telling her to stop hiding her laughter. Haniel suddenly becomes fierce, vowing to protect Catherine, which shocks her mother and makes the emperor wonder where her shyness went. Catherine is stunned, but secretly appreciates his dense and indifferent personality, which keeps the situation from escalating. The emperor asks if Haniel's outburst means she feels better, and Catherine agrees, crediting his willingness to open his heart. Catherine explains that Haniel's pecking is actually a sign of affection, though the emperor remains skeptical. She cleverly draws a parallel to his previous visit, arguing that he wouldn't have gone if he wasn't truly interested. The emperor sits with a stern expression, Haniel now settled calmly in his lap. Haniel defiantly refuses the emperor's command to repeat her affection, prompting Catherine to muse that these siblings are truly something else. Catherine advises the emperor that the first step is crucial in all things, not just in getting close to her daughter. Tremble. His hand clenches as he quietly affirms that he understands her meaning. He pulls out her chair, claiming he's improving, leaving Catherine blushing and internally shocked by the unprecedented gesture. She happily expresses her disbelief that she was ever able to bring their baby to such a place. The emperor looks at her seriously, questioning why this brings her so much joy. He presses her, asking if her daughter is all that matters and questioning if she has any other family or important things in her life. She looks up at him, caught off guard as she clarifies if he's asking about her life. She inwardly reflects on her difficult past and her current lonely existence as a half-beast widow, a life she doesn't consider happy. Despite her somber thoughts, she puts on a bright smile and simply says, "Good." When he asks what's so good, she explains she's happy to have a secure home and see the beautiful lake. She continues, listing that she's glad he doesn't want to kill her, doesn't get angry, and spent a peaceful day with Haniel. She concludes that while she's grateful for it all, she recognizes that too many of these good things are related to him. He chides her for not finishing her sentences, while she secretly thinks she's happy she'll soon be leaving him and returning home. The creature, Haniel, peeks out from behind a pillar as narration speaks of her destiny to become a true princess. A title card marks the end of the chapter. As Catherine thanks the emperor and prepares to leave, he questions her departure, but Haniel steps between them, protectively telling him to stop. Stomp! Stomp! Haniel fiercely defends her mother, telling the emperor she isn't interested in him, causing Catherine to gasp in shock. Catherine stares in utter disbelief, wondering what on earth she is witnessing. She internally panics, comparing the intimidating dog to a monster, while the emperor asks if this is the type of animal she likes. Catherine falls to her knees, comforting a trembling Haniel, who whimpers about the scary doggy. The emperor looks on, confused, and reminds her that she previously said she wanted to see a dog, but Catherine has no memory of it. A young man holding the dog's leash introduces himself as the fourth prince, noting the animal is a rare breed. With a flash of angry realization, Catherine recognizes the fourth prince. Standing with her arms crossed, she glares at the prince, identifying him as the culprit. She directly confronts the fourth prince, accusing him of being the one who frightened Haniel. Both the fourth prince and the emperor call out to her in confusion as she stands silently, her face obscured by her hair. The emperor realizes the fourth prince's dog is the one in question, while the prince expresses shock that his majesty was considering naming it. The emperor commands the dog to halt, petting its head and calming it as Catherine wonders if he's using a spell. Catherine questions the emperor about a previous comment, asking what he meant by beyond a human. The fourth prince reassures her the dog will be harmless, as it only obeys him, and mentions it will be useful for an upcoming hunting tournament. Catherine's eyes widen with surprise at the mention of a hunting tournament. The prince is surprised. She doesn't know about the northern tradition, but she reflects on her isolation. The emperor calls her name, drawing her attention. The emperor instructs a man named Tenon to return the dog, but Catherine quickly objects, insisting she hasn't seen enough yet. With innocent intent, Catherine finds herself captivated by the magnificent dog, unable to let it go. Reaching out, she muses that separating them now just wouldn't be right. Catherine offers Rasheed a small pouch for the dog, and he asks what's inside. She explains it's a treat she packed for someone named Raina, thinking the dog would like it too. After shyly admitting she made the treat herself, Rasheed tells her to give it to the dog, but Peyton objects in alarm. Catherine scoffs, asking if she looks like someone who would curse the food. As the dog happily devours the treat, a stunned Peyton asks Catherine what she gave him. Catherine simply calls it a treat, while Peyton marvels that the dog has never eaten so eagerly, suspecting a secret ingredient. She coldly asks if he's implying she did something wrong, causing him to stammer in denial. Seeing the dog's disappointment, Catherine apologizes that she can't give it anymore. The dog suddenly turns on Peyton, growling menacingly as he shouts at it for disrespecting a prince. Catherine gently comforts the upset dog, while Peyton complains that he did everything he could for it. Cradling the teary-eyed dog, Catherine states that she would have named such a wonderful child. Peyton is left utterly speechless by the scene unfolding before him. Rasheed asks Catherine if she wants to name the dog, offering to grant her that right. Catherine is completely taken aback by his unexpected offer. Rasheed watches her reaction with a subtle, knowing smile. Smiling brightly, Catherine suggests she could find inspiration by spending a night with the dog. As they walk, Catherine reassures a watchful Rasheed, pointing out how much the dog likes her. Rasheed warns her of the dog's ancient demonic lineage and its dangerous primal instincts. He recalls how she didn't hesitate to hand the very same beast over to an infant. Unfazed, Catherine confidently states that animals simply tend to like her. Rasheed finds the dog's immediate affection for her strange, as Catherine playfully rebrands him a dashing, noble puppy. Feigning concern, Catherine claims the rumors from an emperor visiting her villa would be too much for a loyal noble like her to bear. The emperor smirks, revealing he knew what she was thinking by remarking that she memorized that line. The emperor stands confidently amidst a shower of falling feathers. Cradling Haniel, Catherine begins to hesitantly explain her current situation to him. He cuts her off with a simple, quiet, "That's enough." She senses a strange, unreadable emotion in his voice as he repeats that he understands and she's said enough. Standing by a horse, she wonders if his feelings mirror her own uncomfortable inability to let go, dismissing it as just an odd feeling. As he prepares to leave, the emperor tells her he will send a large dog back tomorrow and warns her not to blame him if anything happens. Catherine offers instructions for the dog. Listen to her and do not bite no matter what. Tap. The emperor pats the dog's head, simply calling it dog, which seems to confuse the animal. Leaning close, he gives the dog a chilling warning, promising serious consequences if it disobeys or harms Catherine or her daughter. From behind the gate, Catherine calmly assures the emperor that it's fine, gently petting the now tamed beast. Back in her chambers, a maid shrieks in panic over what Catherine has brought home. But Catherine quiets her so as not to scare the new arrival. One of the dogs begins to snarl menacingly, and Catherine soothingly asks what's wrong. Enveloped in a dark, thorny aura, Catherine smirks at the growling dog and asks if it can sense something. A vision of swans and a panicked dog fills the room as a powerful energy bursts forth. The scene transitions with a recruitment notice. The scene transitions to the exterior of an elegant villa. Inside, a meal is laid out on a table next to a basket holding Haniel. Catherine orders someone to come out and eat, chiding the growling dog for being stubborn. She lectures the dog at the table, insisting that meals are meant to be eaten together. Catherine tells the bristling dog to stop puffing its fur, dismissing the attempt at intimidation. She jokingly worries people might think she hit the dog, as a small swan chick questions if she didn't. In a tense standoff, a large black swan spreads its wings, determined to establish dominance over the dog. The swan challenges the growling dog, asking if it intends to fight back. With a flash of power, the swan dares the dog to try, threatening to tell their master and make things worse. The swan relents for now, but warns the dog that it will be watching how it treats her baby. Back at the table, Catherine consoles the dog, acknowledging it was only following its nature and orders, but notes the princess was scared. Catherine offers to hold her sweetie, as a thought from the swan mother encourages Haniel to tell the dog to go away. The dog wears a look of utter despair, clearly having something it wants to say. Forgetting it can't speak, Catherine tells the frantically gesturing dog to explain itself slowly. An attendant expresses reluctance to deal with an animal, but Catherine orders her to bring it out, then calls the name Celine. As the dog and a small bird named Celine gesture wildly, Catherine demands to know what's wrong and if the food was spoiled. The goose relays the dog side of the story, explaining its perspective must feel unfair too. She learns the dog was only following orders to stick close, prompting her to ask who gave them. Hearing it was the fourth prince, she erupts in anger, decrying the chaos he causes for everyone. She's shocked to learn the dog wasn't actually barking, but was coughing nervously due to the emperor's presence. The goose flaps its wings, insisting there's one more important thing the dog wants to say. In a vision of Haniel, the dog confesses that it always thought she was really cute. To Catherine's bewilderment, the dog now finds the happily hopping Haniel even cuter than before. Haniel eagerly asks to be put down from her basket, wanting to approach the dog on her own. She bravely toddles across the floor towards the large dog, which lies down patiently to meet her. Another woman, accompanied by a goose, joyfully remarks that her brother has taken 2 steps instead of his usual one. The dog suddenly throws its front paws into the air in a playful gesture, surprising the nearby goose. Its enthusiastic movement startles Haniel and the goose, causing them to tumble in a flustered heap. In a sunlit room, a voice off-screen reminds her that it's time for the princess to go to school. The dog lays down the law, warning the goose that a brief conversation doesn't make them family. Catherine addresses a goose as Celine, who warns her that the dog's large paws could accidentally crush the princess. Beaming with an idea, Catherine presents a large basket to the confused group of animals. At a formal meal, a young man observes that the emperor doesn't look well, who questions the remark. The emperor dismisses the concern, blaming his appearance on a sleepless night and telling him not to take it personally. An attendant reports that all is quiet at the villa, and the emperor offers a simple, stoic acknowledgement. The fourth prince inwardly worries that despite Catherine calming the beast, its wild nature remains a threat. He recounts finding his eldest brother, the emperor, standing by the lake at dawn, looking burdened with worry. Back at the table, the fourth prince asks the emperor if he's planning to bring the dog along. As the emperor rises to leave, his brothers ask where he is going and offer to accompany him. He coldly brushes them off, telling them to simply mind their own duties as he walks away. He reminds them of the looming hunting tournament and the imperial dignity they are expected to uphold. As he departs with an attendant, he announces he is heading to the forest's edge to meet with the mages. Left behind, the two princes look on with concern, one of them resigning that they have no other choice. With a charming smile, Rasheed declares he'll simply bring it himself. As Rasheed stands confidently, an astonished Peyton asks why he is smiling. At a quiet lakeside, Rasheed asks Peyton if an ancient beast servant has ever harmed a human, and he confirms they only attack enemies. Rasheed presses further, asking about their behavior toward other animals. Peyton reasons that the Duchess would have told them of any incident, adding it's better an animal gets hurt than her. Rasheed sternly disagrees, suddenly filled with worry and regret over giving her permission to be alone with the animals. He solemnly reflects that this is the first time he has ever wished to turn back time. A woman with flowing white hair suddenly appears, calling out to His Majesty. Rasheed turns to face the newcomer, calmly asking what brings her there. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the wedding of Sarah and David, Saturday, September 23rd, 2023 at 4 p.m. at the Grandview Estate. Dinner and dancing to follow. The scene shifts as the Emperor stands elsewhere, formally asking what brings a lady to this place. An elegant woman with long white hair appears, greeting the Emperor and noting his early walk. A close-up highlights the beautiful, otherworldly flowers blooming near her feet. He presses his question, and she bashfully explains that the lake is part of her family's domain, a path she often walked with her late mother, the Empress. She continues, reflecting that a walk here always helps her most complicated worries to fade away. The Emperor turns to her, coolly suggesting that she must have quite a few worries then. She recounts the difficulty of taking over her late father's duties with no time to grieve, needing to remain strong for her people. Her expression hardens with a look of quiet resolve. He reminds her that she is only acting as regent, and has not been officially confirmed as the successor. He points out that her stepmother is technically more eligible to be regent if the burden is too great. She agrees that her mother's help would be invaluable, prompting him to ask why she has not yet stepped forward. She claims her mother has been unwell since her father's death and simply wishes to be left alone, a fact she says is easily verifiable. He eyes her suspiciously, questioning why she would assume he knows anything about her mother's condition. Flustered before the princes, she explains there are rumors of her mother frequenting the Winter Palace to assist him. He scoffs, amused by the rumor that her supposedly unfit mother could be helping him manage his affairs. Sigh. She feigns concern, worrying aloud that her mother's involvement might interfere with his work. He dismisses her fake worries, asking why she hasn't checked on her stepmother herself before stating he doesn't meddle in noble affairs. Clenching his fist, he warns that matters concerning the royal family's dignity are different and confirms her stepmother is assisting him at his request. With a sly smile, she promises to pay closer attention to her mother's state from now on. He cuts her off, declaring that he will investigate the matter himself, in meticulous detail, causing her to cry out in alarm. She quickly recovers her composure, sweetly asking if he believes his eyes are duller than a provincial noble's before conceding the point. She smoothly thanks him for taking a personal interest in her grieving mother. He questions if she means the Duke, and she affirms it, expressing gratitude for his care toward the widow of a loyal retainer. The princes look on as a thought reveals her words are a political trap, emphasizing Catherine's public role to manipulate the Emperor. Turning his back, the Emperor states that if she insists, he shall accept her thanks. Her expression brightens wickedly as she adds a chilling condition: after I'm dead. He coolly replies that they wouldn't meet before that time anyway, adding to the cryptic tension. He takes a step toward her, remarking that she seems to know him well and wondering what else she might know. Her confident facade finally crumbles as the Emperor and his brothers walk past, leaving her frozen in shock. Wah! The scene shifts to the school, where excited ducklings ask Raina if she knows the mysterious new dog. Catherine holds up Haniel in her swan form, encouraging her to introduce her new friend, the black puppy. The ducklings gather in awe around the proud dog, who stands patiently with the basket on its back. To prove the dog's gentle nature, Haniel snuggles up to its face as Catherine exclaims that he doesn't bite. Wah! Surrounded by flowers, Haniel and the ducklings celebrate their new, gentle friend. Catherine asks Raina for the dog's name, and the other ducklings eagerly suggest it should be something cute. A duckling asks why she chose the name Appa, and another explains it's because he's strong and cool, just like a real big brother. Haniel, who once thought all older brothers were scary, now looks upon the dog with hope in her eyes. Spotting a gathering of children around a large swan, Catherine calls out to someone named Mr. Darren. Mr. Darren expresses his relief that a girl named Raina is getting along with her friends, making Catherine blush with joy. Noticing the new arrival, Mr. Darren turns and asks the Duchess how the dog came to be there. Catherine explains that the dog is just staying for a while, as it happily pants beside her. She firmly scolds the dog, reminding it that this is a school and it must behave itself. When a flock of ducklings ask to ride with Raina, Catherine notes how much the dog is enjoying the attention. Catherine strolls happily through a field of flowers, while the proud dog carries the basket with Haniel inside. Watching this from a distance, the Emperor's brothers are stunned, with one convinced she used dark magic. The Emperor begins walking toward her, silencing his brother's attempt to stop him with a curt command. The brothers marvel at how a magical beast became so obedient overnight, realizing the muzzle they brought is useless. As the Emperor strides toward Catherine's group, one of his brothers whispers, "Who would have thought I'd live to see this?" He stops, watching her organize a line of ducklings next to the docile dog and questioning the strange scene. He steps forward and addresses Catherine directly, demanding to know what she is doing there again. She greets him with a disarming smile, playfully asking why he's using such a serious tone. As she speaks, the once fearsome dog wags its tail enthusiastically, clearly happy to see him. Visibly flustered by her casual teasing, the Emperor turns his head away in confusion. She leans in closer, playfully insisting that she definitely saw him smile a moment ago. Fumble. He awkwardly grabs her arm, trying to backtrack by stammering that he didn't mean she shouldn't smile. They share a quiet, intimate gaze, as she internally reflects that all she wanted was to tease him once. A gentle, almost imperceptible smile finally appears on his face as he looks down at her. Caught in the unexpected moment, she looks up with wide eyes and asks what they should do now. Their intimate moment continues as they gaze deeply into each other's eyes amidst the field of flowers. The Emperor startles Catherine by getting too close, questioning who she planned to introduce this time. He leans in, playfully asking if she means her daughter, while she anxiously wonders where Haniel went. Splash! As she stumbles backward into the water, he tells her to slow down. He grabs her hand to steady her, intensely demanding she answer his question. Flustered by his sudden aggression, Catherine asks what is wrong with him today. Haniel pops up from her basket, excitedly announcing the Emperor's repeated visits. Catherine asks what's wrong, and Haniel sobs that the Emperor was trying to take her mommy away. Holding a crying Haniel, Catherine formally addresses the Emperor. He tells Haniel her frail body can't handle such stress, but she just calls him a meanie. Haniel declares that the Emperor is ugly, stunning him into silence as Catherine internally cringes. She continues scolding him for teasing her mother, prompting him to ask Catherine what's wrong with her daughter now. With an awkward smile, Catherine bluntly relays Haniel's opinion. He's ugly and has a rotten personality. He asks what could have made Haniel think that, wondering if becoming a bird has twisted her perceptions. As he says her name, Haniel cries out, "Mommy!" and Catherine thinks it's for the best they're not looking at each other. Frantically trying to placate her daughter, Catherine blurts out that maybe the Emperor looks handsome today. She gently pinches Haniel's cheeks to quiet her as the Emperor watches. Later, Catherine confirms Haniel is still upset, as Haniel fumes about how uncool the Emperor is. Catherine explains that Rasheed came to see Haniel, but she denies it, leaving her mother confused. In a quiet moment, Catherine looks pensive with Haniel beside her. Haniel correctly guesses that Rasheed came to see her mommy, and Catherine warmly confirms it. When Haniel worries he'll take her away, Catherine firmly promises she's not going anywhere. She privately believes Rasheed's brotherly concern for Haniel is just an excuse to see her. Lying with Haniel, Catherine resolves that she must remain by the lake, as she can't leave. Haniel looks up at her with concern, asking why she has to stay at the lake forever. Catherine reflects on her lonely fate, with no family or anyone to ask her to join them. She recalls her cursed life, where she's resigned to being alone, wondering what could have been. She wistfully imagines how it would feel if someone finally reached out and asked her to come with them. Back in the present, a confused Haniel still can't understand why her mother doesn't find Rasheed ugly. Despite her words, a lingering thought about him remains. Looking at Haniel, Catherine inwardly muses that no one could possibly be more handsome than her brother. Haniel flaps her wings with joy as Catherine dismisses the thought, assuming Rasheed is indifferent to his looks. The scene shifts to a lively town square decorated with festive banners. Inside a lavish room, an attendant informs His Majesty they have arrived. Staring at his reflection, Rasheed anxiously wonders if he's really as ugly as Haniel claimed. He quickly dismisses the thought with a slight smile, deciding not to worry about it. A quick flashback shows Catherine's attempt to convince Haniel he looks handsome. Inside his carriage, Rasheed notices the bustling crowd outside and asks about the noise. Nearby nobles chatter excitedly about the upcoming hunting tournament, the biggest event of the season. After Rasheed asks if a certain woman will participate, his attendant explains the tournament is more of a social gala than a real hunt. In another location, an attendant directs the fourth prince's attention to something outside a window. He explains that noble families are in a frenzy preparing dresses for the hunting festival, which serves as a debutante ball. The fourth prince specifically asks about the married women, but the attendant says the young ladies are the stars of the event. When the prince asks what those in mourning would wear, his attendant is left utterly confused. The fourth prince, now in a hooded cloak, tells his attendant to forget it and prepares to depart. He insists on going alone, telling his chattering attendant to go do something more useful, like prepare dinner. The attendant, completely misunderstanding, fantasizes about a large roasted bird, thinking the prince was worried about party catering. After the attendant notes there are only 3 princes, the fourth prince dismisses the comment, saying it can't be helped. Resolved, he declares that he will just have to match the others himself as he heads out. He walks purposefully through the bustling town square, his destination set. He reflects that while Tennant and Peyton usually track Haniel, he felt compelled to come personally today. In a flashback, Catherine proudly shows the Emperor how well Haniel spreads her wings, comparing her to the weakest thing she's ever known. The Emperor recalls a vivid memory of baby Haniel, whose cries grew louder and more unsettling the closer he got. He reflects on the haunting memory of Haniel's fragile body and the look in her eyes. The fourth prince inwardly vows that at the very least, she must be raised properly. In a flashback, a young Catherine admits she doesn't know what it means to properly raise someone. Sigh. Burdened by his thoughts, the fourth prince looks on with a heavy expression. The fourth prince and his cloaked companions arrive on horseback, greeting his brother. One of the brothers voices suspicions about the Duchess, but the fourth prince dismisses his concerns. He sharply repeats that he does not care what they think. Silencing his brother with a look, he declares the conversation is over. In another location, a woman with lavender hair thoughtfully examines a case of exquisite jewelry. She signals for quiet as her companions gossip. One asks Rebecca why she is just staring instead of approaching someone. A woman with orange hair suggests Rebecca talk to a mysterious cloaked figure, but Rebecca scoffs at the insane idea. The women continue to gossip, questioning why a proper gentleman would hide his identity or associate with a vagrant. Annoyed by their chatter, the lavender-haired woman listens as her companion expresses worry that a man, who is an acting lord, hasn't contacted his betrothed. The lavender-haired woman dismisses the concern, stating it's for her sister to handle, but her companion questions if things are going the lady's way lately. Stunned by the insinuation, the lavender-haired woman demands to know what she means. The orange-haired woman smirks, revealing that everyone is talking about how His Majesty has been spending a lot of time with her stepmother. She elaborates that with the Duchess barred from receiving visitors, people are now sending gifts to the stepmother, whose claim is seen as more legitimate. Enraged, the lavender-haired woman shouts that the stepmother is not her mother, and fumes at the audacity of a mere Marquess's daughter. Her companions are visibly shocked by her sudden and fierce outburst. The orange-haired woman patronizingly addresses her as Eloise, offering to relay her feelings to her sister, but Eloise appears flustered. As Eloise tries to backtrack, the orange-haired woman coldly orders her to move. Eloise seethes internally, resenting how the woman's engagement to a noble has emboldened her and wishing her own fiancé was there to put them in their place. With a look of grim determination, Eloise strides forward. Later, at a jewelry store, Eloise is shocked to discover that someone has already bought all the items. Walking through the woods, Catherine assures herself she's maintaining a professional mindset for the upcoming visit, while her dog makes a small sound. Catherine asks a quiet Celine, "What's wrong?" and the trembling Swan pleads not to go. Catherine displays an imperial summons, explaining that she, her daughter, and her daughter's friend were all specifically requested, causing the Swan to cry out in terror. Catherine adjusts a new ribbon in her hair, blushing as she claims it's just to change her mood, leaving Darren utterly speechless. She reassures a worried Haniel in her basket that her brother doesn't hate her, but Haniel reveals that he touched her. Upon hearing Haniel confirm this happened at the palace, Catherine's expression darkens as she begins to recall Rasheed's past actions. In a chilling flashback, Rasheed enters the nursery, ignoring a whimpering young Haniel as he slowly walks toward her cradle. As Haniel cries out in fear, an attendant begs Rasheed to restrain himself, but he coldly asks what they think he's going to do to that thing. Back with Haniel, Catherine promises that if Rasheed ever hurts her again, she will retaliate. She vows they will stop visiting him if he repeats his behavior, but adds a condition. An attendant informs a man seated at an elegant outdoor table that the requested dishes are ready and asks about his guest's arrival, to which he replies, "There she is now." The attendant confirms the Duchess has arrived, but questions the others mentioned, as a diagram labels Catherine, a baby swan, a hellhound, and a teal duck, all of whom are apparently coming together. Looking at the attendant, Rasheed coolly asks if there's a problem with her unconventional entourage. Rasheed sternly warns his attendant to watch his behavior and not make the guests uncomfortable, lest he be held accountable, and the attendant quickly agrees. As Catherine arrives with her companions, the attendants stare in surprise while she offers a serene smile. The attendant with glasses inwardly admits that, with a smile like that, he would easily believe she seduced the dying duke. Recalling how society ladies gossiped about Catherine's gloomy appearance, the attendant asks why she intentionally dressed up so beautifully today. Catherine tells her companions to look away, privately thinking Rasheed seems like a possessive beast anxious over his caught prey. Standing beside Rasheed, she reflects that while she doesn't believe all the rumors about him, a part of her is still wary. Rasheed calmly watches his attendant, who nervously fumbles while setting the table. Catherine sweetly tells her animal companions to say hello, prompting the attendant to marvel at her control over the hellhound and wonder if rumors of her dark magic are true, as she lightly scolds the duck. Rasheed questions how long Celine intends to keep up her act, causing Catherine to become flustered. As the attendant stares, Catherine makes an excuse, claiming Celine has just been a little shy lately. A blonde-haired man asks if she wasn't shy before, and Catherine replies that was in the past, feeling as though she's in another world entirely. When the blonde man offers Catherine a dish, the attendant quickly intervenes, stating it was prepared specifically at His Majesty's request. Catherine blushes prettily as she accepts the food, causing the attendant to internally dismiss the gossip about her being a witch. The attendant's thoughts reveal that although Rasheed mentioned marketplace turkey, he would never serve such risky food to people of their status. Catherine beams with delight at the lavish spread of food, while the swan beside her flaps its wings in excitement. The attendant proudly lifts a cloche, announcing that he personally hunted the main course for His Majesty today. A perfectly grilled and prepared roasted bird is revealed on a platter. Both Catherine and the swan stare in wide-eyed horror at the roasted poultry. AAAARGGH. Imagining a memorial portrait for Darren, Catherine lets out a piercing scream. She leaps from her chair and flees as the bewildered attendant calls out, "The Duchess!" Unfazed, Rasheed calmly instructs the shocked attendant to bring out the food while his brother suggests he eat first. Concluding that he's the only one overreacting, the attendant places a dish of salmon on the table. Rasheed tells the attendant to leave Catherine's plate, confidently stating that she'll be back soon anyway. A title card announces Chapter 36, featuring Catherine holding Haniel against a backdrop of white flowers. Haniel, as a swan, wanders through tall grass, calling for her mom and realizing this isn't their home. She fondly remembers how Catherine would always press down the grass so she wouldn't trip. Haniel calls out to a surprised Rasheed, addressing him as Black Swan. Later, Haniel spots the dog and tells him to go away, pretending she's not. Haniel as a voice scolds her for being noisy. Rasheed calls her noisy and tiny, but Haniel continues her denial, insisting she isn't crying or even Haniel. She introduces herself as Raina, a name her mother gave her, and wonders how the Emperor knows it. Rasheed kneels down, explaining her mom has stepped out for a bit, but Haniel refuses to believe him. She defiantly demands to see Haniel's mom, while Rasheed patiently repeats that she isn't there. Plop. She dramatically plays dead, declaring Teacher Darren taught her to do this when meeting a bad person. Amused by her theatrics, Rasheed calmly observes her "I'm dead" performance. While trying to help, he notices her untied ribbon, and wonders aloud how he's supposed to fix it now. The ornate ribbon, with its dangling red gem, has come loose. Smiling softly, Rasheed calls her amusing as he gently pats her head. He questions her displeasure, and she internally admits she shouldn't lie because it was actually a little fun. He dangles the jeweled ribbon, asking if she dislikes it, and she bashfully denies it. He ties the ribbon for her, suggesting she give the rest of the gifts to her mom. Elsewhere, a frantic Catherine runs through the woods, desperately calling for Teacher Darren. She holds a featherless bird, distressed as she recognizes its sleek body as one from their lake. A large gray swan approaches, and Catherine calls out, "Teacher Darren?" as a different voice asks, "Duchess?" The two-headed swan appears near fainted Celine, and Catherine expresses her relief and confusion. Dismissing it as a misunderstanding, Catherine watches the plucked bird miraculously revive from its near-death experience. As the swan asks about the misunderstanding, Catherine internally panics, unable to admit she thought he was a roasted dinner. The swan, Darren, asks if any animals have gone missing from the lake. He clarifies his question, specifically asking about those under the curse who might have recently vanished. Catherine confirms none are missing, as the cursed inhabitants rarely stray, while Darren tilts his head thoughtfully. She puzzles over how teacher Darren arrived at the lake, remembering Lady Mello had invited him. When Darren asks if she's okay, she brushes it off, thinking that as long as a handsome man is present, all is well. Catherine apologizes to a large swan for the commotion, and he reassures the Duchess that her shock was understandable. She reflects on his gentlemanly attitude, wishing a certain someone could learn from him, and confirms he truly is a teacher. Gasp! She suddenly rushes toward the swan with a worried cry, calling him her sweet baby. Her inner thoughts scream in frustration, questioning what kind of mother would act in such a way. Waving goodbye, Catherine tells teacher Darren she'll see him later and warns him not to wander off. She continues running, desperately thinking that it's too dangerous, and he absolutely mustn't. Mustn't what? Rasheed asks, appearing suddenly with a basket as Catherine realizes Haniel will be safe now that he's here. From inside the basket, Haniel calls out, "Mommy," causing Catherine to exclaim with relief. Catherine apologizes as Rasheed holds a basket with a crying Haniel, who sobs about being left behind. Puzzled by his presence, Catherine asks why he brought Haniel, and he tells her to take her daughter. Beaming, Catherine addresses him as Your Majesty, but he chides her for leaving Haniel with just anyone. She corrects him, stating he is also Haniel's big brother. His expression hardens as he commands her to say that again. Leaning closer, Rasheed intensely asks Catherine who she just said he was. Catherine grows anxious, worrying his pettiness might lead him to take Haniel away from her someday. Flustered, Rasheed cuts her off, insisting that wasn't what he meant to say at all. As Haniel peeks from the basket, Catherine thanks Rasheed profusely, but he interrupts her, suddenly calm. Rasheed reflects that her genuine thanks cause a strange ache, far harder to handle than her usual anger. Clearing his throat, he asks how she found him, and if he needs a reason to visit. He sighs and shakes his head at her seemingly obvious question, leaving Catherine completely baffled. He mentions the upcoming Northern Hunting Tournament, a topic that seems to surprise Catherine. Catherine expresses her distaste for hunting, unless it's for survival, which catches Rasheed off guard. When he mentions the parties and banquets of the social season, she declares she hates those even more. She reminds him of the party he attended, where he witnessed how cruelly everyone looked at her. Cuddling Haniel, Catherine insists she is perfectly happy just spending time with her baby. She inwardly realizes she got carried away, as he wasn't actually asking for her personal preferences. Catherine awkwardly suggests he must have work to do, but Rasheed gives a firm no. He declares with surprising intensity that he also loathes such barbaric events, startling Catherine with his vehemence. Catherine formally thanks him for the invitation and his help before preparing to leave. Rasheed abruptly stops her, demanding to know exactly who this Darren guy is. You've reached the end of the chapter. Rasheed confronts Catherine, pointing out that she mentioned the name Darren, which belongs to a man. He sternly accuses her of playing dumb and demands to know who this new man is. Catherine looks at Rasheed, about to respond to his accusation. The scene jumps back to Catherine explaining to a skeptical Rasheed that Darren is simply a swan. She reasons that since he's a birdling, he's technically a male animal, not a man. Rasheed is struck dumb by her bizarre logic, questioning, "What? A male?" He angrily asks if Darren is her son, prompting Catherine to retort that he'd better be his son. Catherine feels a wave of resignation, thinking that at this point, nothing can surprise her anymore. Rasheed accuses her of having secret affairs and suggests she's only defensive because the topic bothers her. He stares at her in complete exasperation, thinking she is a truly bewildering woman. Haniel's call for mom interrupts their tense conversation. Catherine's attention immediately shifts to Haniel, who is rustling in her basket. Kya, a narration bubble, explains that their little princess spins in circles when she wants to show something off. Catherine dotes on Haniel's cute features before noticing she has a new accessory and asks who gave it to her. Haniel proudly shows off the ornate, jeweled ribbon she's now wearing. Catherine smiles, guessing the gift is from her third brother as she glances at a wall of portraits. Shaking her head, Haniel corrects her mother, indicating the gift is from the Emperor standing right behind them. Darren asks if she's implying he's the fourth brother, then sternly tells her to stop if she's doing it on purpose. HMPH. He internally scoffs at her insinuation, As Catherine stares in surprise, Haniel peeks happily from her basket. At a grand estate, Catherine asks Haniel if the Emperor really tied her ribbon, and she confirms it. Darren tells Catherine that compared to the brutish Tenon and sheltered Peyton, Rasheed seems the most sane. Contemplating his words, Catherine considers putting the #1 candidate on hold for now. He leans in, warning Catherine that Rasheed is the one she truly needs to keep an eye on. She brightly offers him something to wipe his face with. Catherine reminds a delighted Haniel to remember the promise she made. In a quick memory, Catherine tells Haniel that if she realizes her brother didn't hurt her on purpose, back in the present, a concerned Darren tells Catherine to stop whatever she is doing. Catherine clenches her fists, cheering Haniel on to show him what she can do. As Haniel waddles forward, Catherine is overcome with emotion, while Darren asks what he is supposed to be watching. Catherine turns to him excitedly, asking if he saw what Haniel just did. Gasp! He looks startled as Catherine explains Haniel is doing much better, then dismisses it, assuming he doesn't care. Standing beside her, he firmly states that he definitely saw it. When Catherine asks what he saw, he gets flustered, referring to what she just said. Haniel proudly declares she did it all by herself, and a distracted Catherine agrees. Catherine holds up Haniel, showing him how happy the simple ribbon has made her. He gently touches Catherine's face, catching her completely off guard. She continues her thought, recalling that her daughter used to manage only one step. Leaning closer, he softly tells her that he is always listening. Whew! Celine expresses her relief after the shocking roast bird incident, lamenting that she almost died without confessing her feelings. Celine looks over at a drained Catherine and Haniel resting on a chaise lounge and asks why they look so exhausted. Haniel tells her mother the pain in her chest is gone, and Catherine confirms she feels better too. When Haniel mentions her Emperor brother, Catherine acknowledges who she's talking about. Catherine wonders what to do, unsettled by Rasheed's sudden, unpredictable gestures, like touching her cheek. She clutches her chest, questioning if his confusing actions could really mean nothing at all. Dismissing the thought as ridiculous, Catherine internally scolds Rasheed for acting like a romantic hero instead of the tyrant he's supposed to be. She reassures a worried Haniel that it's fine, but the chick still seems concerned about the Emperor. Wah. Haniel excitedly shows off a new jeweled ribbon, asking Catherine to blow on it while Catherine fawns over her little princess. From nearby, Celine remarks on the Emperor's strange extravagance in giving such a gift to a child. Catherine privately muses that if Haniel were treated properly at the palace, she would receive lavish gifts like this every day. Haniel offers the jewel to Catherine, declaring that it is for her mommy, much to Catherine's surprise. With determined eyes, Haniel clarifies that this particular gift is not for her. The beautiful orange gem hanging from the ribbon sparkles brightly. Catherine reflects that the brilliant gem was never meant for her, and that she has been returning all of Rasheed's gifts, knowing greed only leads to pain. Feeling numb but still human, she admits that it hurts so much more because the one causing the pain is Rasheed. Catherine tries to give the jewel back, stating His Majesty gave it to Haniel, but Haniel adamantly insists it is for her mommy. Confused by Haniel's persistence, Catherine asks what she means. 3 magical copies of Haniel appear, each with a gem, as they dance around happily, and Catherine thinks her daughter is too precious. Catherine instructs a Swan to go with his nanny, explaining she needs to prepare dinner by soaking fish flakes before she turns into a black swan. While in a pantry, Catherine hears a noise and wonders if they've returned already. Opening the door, she calls out to ask if someone forgot something, and stops in surprise. A group of lavishly dressed women appear, and one warmly greets Catherine as her eldest daughter, shocking her. Catherine stares in stunned silence, utterly confused by the sudden visit. You've now reached the end of the chapter and the beginning of the next one. We hope you've enjoyed your journey through the previous pages and are ready to embark on a new adventure. At a tea party, a woman with white hair asks her mother if seeing family again is awkward, as Catherine sits opposite them. The woman warmly tells Catherine how much they've missed her, and Catherine realizes this must be her stepmother. Catherine's narration expresses her preference for dealing with strangers over the greedy women at the tea party. She thinks about how Rania's scrutinizing gaze gets under her skin. A lady at the tea party nervously asks Catherine if she's ruining the reunion, insisting it's an honor to see her. Rania feigns pleasantries, embarrassing the other women, who claim they were worried about their humble daughter. Rania sides with the women, agreeing that Catherine should not be acting this way. Sipping her tea, Catherine coldly informs them that begging like dogs will achieve nothing. When a woman accuses her of insulting her own family, Catherine retorts that her so-called family, who sold her off, should look in the mirror before lecturing her. A sharp voice screams the name Catherine. Catherine coldly corrects the woman, reminding her of the title Duchess that she gained after being sold off. In a flashback, a young girl cries for her mom as a white-haired woman sips tea, unconcerned. The woman tells Catherine she's being too harsh, but Catherine icily addresses her as Rania. Unthreatened, Catherine tells Rania she knows this is a pressure tactic using so-called family members. Rania feigns ignorance, but Catherine offers to explain the reality of the situation to her. Catherine states she is indifferent to the fate of the others, leaving their grim future for Rania to decide. Internally, Catherine feels no fear facing Rania, thanking Rasheed for the strength he has given her. Accepting Catherine's bluntness, Rania smiles and signals for two cloaked men to step forward. Rania orders the confused relatives to be escorted out, and her guards comply immediately. As the relatives are dragged away, Catherine muses on their stupidity before Rania addresses her again. Rania calls Catherine cold for dismissing her family, pointing out that she is still present. Smiling disarmingly, Catherine declares that her only family now is Rania. Catherine calmly tells Rania to give up her useless attempts, as she already knows how to behave. Rania warns Catherine that she will regret this, but Catherine coolly challenges her and calls for someone to enter. A woman bursts in holding Haniel, frantically calling for her mommy. Catherine's eyes flash with fury as she screams for the woman to let Haniel go, while Rania smirks victoriously. One of the other women points out that she recognizes the jewels around Haniel's neck from the city. Rebecca excitedly speculates that His Majesty must have bought the gems, but Rania sternly tells her to be quiet. The woman holding Haniel blames Catherine for the situation, but Catherine delivers a final warning to put the bird down. As the woman dismissively tightens her grip, causing Haniel to cry out, Catherine's expression turns terrifyingly cold. Kia! Catherine slaps the woman hard across the face, who cries out in pain. The woman stumbles back in shock, clutching her cheek while still holding a tearful Haniel. Enraged, the woman threatens to kill Catherine, who coldly tells her this was her last chance to leave. Catherine grabs another young woman's arm, warning her that if she lays a finger on Haniel, it's over. A third woman holds the young woman back as the stepmother chides her, revealing the girl's name is Rebecca. Rebecca trembles with rage, shocked that her sister is siding with Catherine. The stepmother coolly orders Rebecca to lower her hand, warning that she might get very mad. She reflects on seeing a precious child held hostage and being unable to let her die, addressing her own mother. Catherine challenges the stepmother, noting her coldness to family contrasts with her desperation over a Swan chick. When Catherine demands to know what she wants, her stepmother says she expects her to act accordingly. Her stepmother warns her to stop entertaining pointless hopes regarding His Majesty, which confuses Catherine. She clarifies, mocking the delusions of a washed-up widow and telling Catherine to live quietly and disappear. With a confident smile, Catherine says she would love nothing more, if only the Emperor would let her go. The stepmother seethes with rage, uttering the name Rania. Catherine calmly tells Rania to stop using her as a punching bag. Rania clenches her fist, questioning if Catherine thinks she is a coward. Laughing, Rania grabs a terrified Rebecca, declaring that she will be even more of a coward. Catherine realizes she should have known something was wrong, musing that Rania's affection for the Swan is born of desperation. With a menacing grin, Rania holds out her hand and demands Catherine hand something over. Rania threatens to slit Catherine's throat if she says the wrong thing to the Emperor, claiming an unknown item will keep her in line. A promotional image shows Catherine looking serene as she holds a small, sleeping swan. Rania grabs Catherine's arm, pleading with her not to listen, while Catherine demands she hand over the one she cares for before they get hurt. Catherine presents the ribbon, revealing that His Majesty himself tied it onto Haniel. In a different scene, Catherine explains that His Majesty tied the ribbon himself, a claim Rania finds unbelievable, but Catherine challenges her to ask him. Rania smirks, suggesting they ask the Emperor together, confident that the cold-hearted man will soon decide who to eliminate. Rania shouts in outrage, but Catherine calmly states she had warned her multiple times not to provoke her. With glowing eyes, Rania warns that Catherine will soon regret her arrogance. Catherine retorts that her only regret is how quietly she tolerated her life for so long, satisfied with the status quo. She continues that she let other provocations slide, but not when it comes to Haniel, prompting Rania to mock her for running to His Majesty. Catherine sighs, dismissively, musing that in Rania's world, everything seems to boil down to a single man. What the hell? Rania explodes in fury, while another woman tries to restrain her, calling her sister. Catherine watches Rania's outburst with a cool, unflinching gaze. Catherine taunts Rania, saying her behavior makes her question what could possibly be so great about Rasheed. Elsewhere, an attendant asks Rasheed about the hunting festival, noting they still have time before it begins. Rasheed contemplates the matter, deciding that the current period of mourning has been long enough. The attendant agrees, stating that the Emperor's permission for the festival would officially end the mourning. Relaxing on his throne, Rasheed declares that no one in the north will be able to extend the mourning period. The attendant then inquires about the banquet, suggesting it be held at the Winter Palace since the Empress has not yet been instated. Rasheed cuts him off to confirm the banquet will be held at his palace, and the attendant agrees. With a slight smile, Rasheed remarks that the idea is not bad. The attendant notes the tight schedule before hunting season, but Rasheed abruptly decides to cancel the event. Calling it barbaric nonsense, Rasheed shocks the attendant, who thinks he must be joking, promising a grander event upon Rasheed's return to the imperial palace. The attendant is stunned when Rasheed asks why he would return. The attendant backpedals nervously, realizing his mistake. He quickly clarifies that all lands belong to the emperor, just as a voice calls out to his majesty. Catherine appears in the doorway, surprised to see Rasheed, who calls out her name. She stands uncertainly as Rasheed and another man look her way. Rasheed firmly commands Catherine to speak to him as she and the other man look on nervously. Standing before his desk, a hesitant Catherine asks if she might be able to attend the banquet as well. Celine asks Catherine if she was truly invited to the banquet by His Majesty, and Catherine confirms it. In a flashback, Catherine tells Rasheed his sudden appearances are exhausting and tries to leave. To her surprise, Rasheed nonchalantly gives her permission to go ahead and leave. Rasheed then smirks, rhetorically asking how much of a nuisance she would be if he refused her. Catherine internally scoffs, annoyed at the implication that she has ever been a bother. Back in the present, Celine warns Catherine that Rana will stop at nothing, prompting Catherine to ponder her rival's low opinion of her. Celine points to a scar on her wing from protecting Haniel, urging Catherine to be more careful. Catherine resolves to use this conflict to see who is truly on her side, tired of being an easy target. Alarmed by Catherine's intense glare, Celine nervously backpedals, insisting she only meant Catherine was delicate. Catherine is horrified by the thought that Haniel could have died during the confrontation. She blames herself, but dismisses Celine's comfort, stating that knowing evil exists and doing nothing is simply stupid. She realizes that if she remains passive, her enemies will just come after her again. Catherine declares her new resolve to meet people and take everything, stunning Celine with her ambition. She looks down at Haniel, now safely nestled in a basket held by Celine. The image focuses on the jeweled ribbon, a symbol of what saved Haniel from harm. Haniel is held lovingly, looking happy and content after the ordeal. A voiceover suggests Rasheed would be pleased if Catherine understood the significance of his gift. In a flashback, Rasheed thoughtfully decides that Rana will need a new ribbon as well. The scene changes to a grand estate, where Eloise descends a stone staircase. Eloise angrily confronts someone named Ronan for summoning her so late, but assumes he has a good reason. Entering the room, she finds Ronan looming over a bound man, and she questions if he's a magician. Ronan confirms her suspicion, revealing the captive is a palace mage who was once part of the tower. He explains he caught him skulking around, but Eloise is furious, asking if he's mad for capturing a royal mage. Eloise frantically questions Ronan's actions, worrying what will happen if the Emperor discovers his mage was captured. Eloise internally wonders why Rasheed would suddenly come to the north. Ronan restrains a captive with magic, asking Eloise if she is curious about the Emperor's visit. GRRK. The captured man struggles against the painful magical bonds. The captive demands to know who Ronan is, furious at his treatment, while Ronan asks if the Great Tower has mentioned him. Looming over his captive, Ronan sarcastically asks what the old man said, suggesting he was called a cursed magician or the tower's disgrace. The captured mage furiously demands his release, declaring that this insult extends to His Majesty and the sacred tower. Unimpressed, Ronan unleashes a menacing aura and demands the captive tell him the real reason for the Emperor's visit. The captive mage pleads with Eloise, the Lady of Evenittle, to come to her senses, offering to break Ronan's spell. Eloise calmly replies that she seeks no mercy from the Emperor, correcting the mage's misunderstanding as he panics about her being confined with a man. In a dark, magical setting, Ronan taunts Eloise, doubting she will report their activities to His Majesty. The captive mage recalls a forbidden magic that controls the mind, questioning if that is what Eloise is doing, while Ronan warns her of the price. Eloise questions Ronan for using a life so recklessly when their deal was for her to be handed over, prompting him to sardonically call himself the real dark sorcerer. Unfazed, Eloise calls such methods inelegant and confidently states she'll be compensated for her expended life force one day. Ronan agrees this must happen and commands the struggling mage to think, who then cries out in agony. With a cruel smirk, Ronan reveals he was once nearly the master of the tower the mage worships. The scene shifts to a carriage traveling down a path as a voice calls for Catherine. Inside the carriage, Rasheed asks Catherine why she has such a long face. Startled from her thoughts, Catherine addresses Rasheed, sitting beside the basket with Celine and Haniel. Rasheed smirks, teasing that with her expression, anyone might think he was abducting her. Catherine sits opposite him, internally revealing she's been sleepless from watching over Haniel since Rania's visit. Outside her home, Rasheed commands Catherine to come out, threatening to enter himself if she refuses. Catherine internally fumes about a man showing up at a widow's house, telling him that's precisely why he shouldn't be there. She internally reasons that someone barging in unannounced is usually trying to catch a rat, or is a pervert. Noticing her sly smirk, Rasheed questions it as she thinks he does whatever he wants. Annoyed and half asleep, Catherine bemoans her cursed fate, unable to even rest in peace, while Celine asks if she slept well. Flustered, Catherine blurts out that today is Mr. Darren's weekend swimming lesson, leaving Rasheed utterly bewildered. She quickly backpedals, claiming she was just lost in thought, and Rasheed silently deflects, saying her words remind him of something. Haniel sticks its tongue out playfully at Catherine, who groans in annoyance. Ugh, that brat. Rasheed remarks that he never found Catherine particularly cute until now. He clarifies that seeing her next to the stained Haniel makes her seem okay, questioning if Haniel is just that bad. Now, traveling in the carriage, Catherine asks their destination, and Rasheed playfully asks if she's curious. She confirms her curiosity, assuming his sudden visit must be for something urgent. Rasheed suggests she sleep if she's tired, but Catherine immediately denies it, calling the thought unthinkable. Moments later, she's fast asleep as Rasheed watches, deciding to tell her his plans anyway. He explains he has preparations to make for the ordeal, and that he never does things halfway. Rasheed looks on with a determined expression. He tells her to simply follow his lead, unless she wants to be stubborn. In a flashback, Rasheed holds Catherine's hand, telling her to pretend not to know anything, and he will do the same. Rasheed gently holds Catherine in a tender moment. Back in the present, Catherine sits quietly, with a basket containing Celine and Haniel. Rasheed knocks on the carriage door, asking if Catherine is getting out, and she quickly confirms she is. Catherine worries that Rasheed noticed she fell asleep, while Celine tries to get her attention. Celine suggests it might be better for them to remain in the carriage. Celine explains that Haniel has been skittish around people since the incident with Raina and might be startled by the Emperor. As Celine begs them to go on ahead, Rasheed calls for Catherine, who reluctantly agrees to leave the carriage. Catherine entrusts Haniel to Celine's care, though her worried expression reveals that Celine's optimism only makes her more anxious. Walking alongside Rasheed, Catherine hesitantly asks about the urgent task he mentioned earlier. She looks around in bewilderment, realizing he has brought her to a dress shop. Sigh. Rasheed calls it an important mission, but Catherine questions his purpose as she gazes at a lavish gown. Rasheed informs Catherine that she will be by his side at the banquet and must dress appropriately. He criticizes her current all-black mourning attire, deeming it too dull for the occasion. Catherine worriedly asks Rasheed if her dress is that bad, admitting it's one of her better ones. She looks down, confessing that she had put some thought into her appearance. Rasheed leans in close and declares that in his eyes, her dress is the most beautiful. Catherine's eyes widen in stunned silence. He adds that if he finds her beautiful, then so should everyone else. A shopkeeper, introduced as Viscount Dion, ecstatically welcomes the Emperor, but Rasheed curtly says, later. Catherine internally scoffs, thinking that his compliments might have worked when they first met, but not now. She maintains a cool and skeptical expression, unconvinced by his words. In a flashback, Rasheed stands with another woman and calls out to a solitary Catherine. He playfully asks if the beloved Duchess is once again engrossed in his stories. Back in the present, Catherine mentally chides herself to focus and not misinterpret his intentions. She reflects on their mismatched pairing, the Emperor and the Northern Witch, and concludes it's why people are so curious about them. Determined, she decides to clarify her intentions to the woman with Rasheed, since it's imperial business. Catherine explains that as the one sitting beside the Emperor at his first banquet in the North, she cannot be an eyesore. She dismisses the woman's empty chatter, stating she was already planning to look for a new dress. Observing the scene, Catherine muses that Rasheed's mere presence makes him the center of attention, a simple reality. A promotional image for the series is displayed. Resigned, Catherine realizes she has no choice but to go along with his decision. She decides she might as well enjoy the view while she's at it. Wow. A stunning collection of beautiful and sparkling dresses is revealed before her. Catherine reaches for a red gown but hesitates, thinking there's no point in even touching it. She stands transfixed, captivated by a magnificent, sparkling blue dress on display. Moments earlier in the dress shop, Catherine had stared blankly at the gown, remembering her eyes reflecting that same color in a lake when she first arrived. She smiles wistfully while touching the beautiful blue fabric, wondering what it would feel like to be wrapped in it. Rasheed appears behind her, asking if she likes the dress, startling Catherine, who claims she was just looking. Imagining how the color would suit her, Rasheed presses for an answer, asking if she dislikes it and causing her to blush. Catherine shyly admits she does like it, just as a woman in a green dress peeks out from behind a curtain. The shopkeeper emerges, gushing over the stunning gown, and the unmatched elegance of her establishment. Catherine politely tells Rasheed she'll take the dress, but his skeptical reply, "Is that so?" suggests he sees through her formality. With a sudden, shocking movement, Rasheed draws his sword and slashes the beautiful dress in two, earning a scream from the shopkeeper. A menacing smile plays on Rasheed's lips as he calls it a shame and coolly tells her to try something else. Confused by his actions, Catherine wonders why he keeps glancing behind her while speaking. She suggests they look at morning attire instead, prompting an irritated Rasheed to inwardly curse the blasted morning wear. Cornering her, Rasheed impatiently demands a straight answer. Does she like the blue dress or not? She admits she does, but hesitates, prompting him to ask what the problem is. Rasheed's gaze intensifies as he asks if she is truly still mourning the late Duke so deeply. He mockingly questions if her husband left a will demanding she wear black forever. Annoyed, Catherine denies it, explaining she never even saw her husband's face and is simply not used to such extravagant clothing. Now seated with the fabric of the ruined dress, Rasheed impatiently orders her to just put on a new one. When the shopkeeper offers to help with jewelry, Catherine declines, stating she'll do it herself. HMPH. Rasheed glares at the shopkeeper for not doing her job, causing the terrified woman to plead with Catherine for help. Surrounded by a mountain of purchased dresses and accessories, Rasheed thinks to himself that this isn't so bad. The shopkeeper nervously urges Catherine to try on the dress, and Catherine feels strangely accepting of Rasheed's domineering behavior. Catherine asks if the fitting will take long, and the shopkeeper explains it requires care and natural light. Looking out the window, the shopkeeper notes that a heavy rain is about to begin. Catherine smiles kindly, reassuring the woman that she understands the simple desire to try on such a pretty dress. Meanwhile, a small voice awakens inside the carriage, confusedly asking where she is. Haniel peeks out from her basket, looking around with wide, curious red eyes. Realizing she's alone, Haniel's eyes fill with tears as she begins to miss her mommy. Noticing the sleeping Celine, Haniel identifies her as her nanny and decides it's time for a lullaby. Manhwa! Haniel playfully climbs on Celine, complaining that she was supposed to be resting. Celine murmurs that she hasn't slept, causing a startled Haniel to momentarily mistake her for Catherine. Peeking out the carriage door, Haniel delightedly recognizes the falling rain. A warm memory surfaces for Haniel. When it rains, good things happen. As she listens to the rain, a disembodied voice from her past asks if Princess Haniel has been well. The memory fades and Haniel pouts, sad that the voice wasn't her mommy's, whom she misses dearly. Elsewhere, a hushed conversation about the Empress leaving on a rainy day is overheard by a young girl, who wonders at its meaning. Filled with newfound purpose, Haniel declares she must go find her mommy. Haniel leaps from the carriage into the rain, determined to bring her mommy back and calling out for her. She runs gleefully through the town, certain she will find her mother soon. Dashing through the rain, Catherine clutches her head, wondering if Haniel is still asleep somewhere. She creaks open the carriage door, her expression filled with dread as she calls out for Celine. Finding the carriage completely empty, her desperate cry for her sweetie echoes inside. Seeing a pouch of dropped snacks on the ground, Catherine realizes Celine is also missing and concludes they must be together. In a sudden panic, Catherine screams for Celine as a small, trembling duck stands nearby. The sky opens up, drenching Catherine as she stands frozen in the street, the small duck at her feet. The duck, Celine, frantically blames herself for falling asleep, but Catherine cuts her off, insisting they must find Haniel right now. Racked with guilt, Catherine regrets not taking Haniel with her, or at least closing the carriage door. Catherine orders a frantic Celine to go back, but she tearfully protests, wanting to help search for Haniel. Firmly, Catherine explains that she can't keep Celine safe and that someone must wait at the carriage in case Haniel returns. Celine asks what Catherine will do, and she resolves to search nearby, believing a scared Haniel couldn't have gone far. She grips her head in frustration, mentally scolding herself for thinking any part of this situation was fortunate. Looking out at the crowded town square, Catherine has an unexpected thought. Perhaps this might be for the best. Determined to find her daughter, Catherine focuses her resolve and runs through the downpour, calling out for her sweetie.